Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. I'm Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday. We are here live on February 7th, 2025, doing the very first round of readings for February live on the channel. If you guys can see this, give me a thumbs up, like the stream, and let me know where you're tuning in from. And like I said, we're live on February 7th. So if you're watching on the 8th or the 9th, please don't send any payments for readings. Otherwise, you will be refunded. And I hope to catch you here next week for Valentine's Day. If you guys want to come and hang out and be my Valentine, we'll be doing tarot next week. And I'm excited to be doing some readings for you guys. So just saying hello to everybody in the chat. What's going on, guys? Coco's here, Christine, Enchanted, Deanna, Genevieve, Zism. Am I saying that correct? Good vibrations. Rosie's here, and Anne is here. What's going on, guys? Happy Friday. So if this is your first time joining me, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. I'm here every Friday night, usually around 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Pacific, and 7 p.m. Eastern. I know we got people all over the world, so if you're joining me from other places, say hello. Make sure you give me a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. We are so close to hitting 40,000 subscribers. So close. So we are going to be hitting that pretty soon. And obviously it's the beginning of the month. So if you guys don't know, I actually have memberships on my YouTube channel. Maybe you've seen some of my videos. I like to combine tarot, astrology, and the Sabian symbols to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. You can support me as a full-time content creator. I put out 4 videos a week, long-form content, talk about global events, and lots of information for the collective, horoscopes, new and full moon reports, and much more. You can support me by joining my memberships. There's 3 levels, and obviously level 1, 2, and 3 all get shout outs. But if you're a level 3 member, you're gonna get a reading from me once a month, and you get to skip the line. So you don't have to wait for all of the other readings. We always take our level 3 people first. So this evening, I've got for level 3, Coco, Christine, Enchanted, Deanna, and if there's anybody else here who wants to get in, Dorothy, I see you now. What's up, Adriana? I will add you to my list. We'll be taking you guys first. And in order to get a reading, if you want to get in the queue, we will leave it open for a period of time. There's a QR code right here next to me. If you scan that code, it's going to take you to my PayPal. So I'll be pulling up the charts live and I'll be answering your guys' questions. In order for me to do that, I do need some information from you. So when you go to PayPal and you make the donation, it's going to basically be a whole series of information that I'm going to need from you guys. I need your birth date with the year and the month spelled out. Give me your exact time along with the AM or the PM and the city and state which you guys were born in. And obviously we're doing readings by donation. It's going to be 55 USD. And we're doing synastry. So if you want to get a synastry reading for 70, I can look at your astrology with another person. Put some info in the memo. Let me know what you want to know. Maybe you have a question about a natal aspect in your chart. Maybe you're curious about a transit or you're looking for good timing. Or maybe you just want to know what the heck is going on. Especially we're kind of in between right now. Usually we try to do the readings on Fridays around like the new or the full moons. But we've got a full moon coming in this next week in Leo and it is a doozy. So if you have questions about that, let me know. What's up, Anne? I did get your email. Synastry is not included in level 3, so if you want me to do that, you can just pay the difference if you want. And I'm happy to do the reading for you. And I'll have to pull that email up actually. So where's my phone? I'll see if I can pull it up on here in just a second. You might have to change the windows so I can pull up the emails, but I will add you as well. So just let me know if you want a general reading and or if you want me to do the synastry for you. Okay, so with that being said, I just want to give a quick shout out because it's the beginning of the month to all of my level 1 and 2 and 3 members. Because of you guys, it's possible. You guys make it possible for me to keep creating this content. We've had some people who have been members for over 2 years. So just a big thank you to you guys for all of your dedication and your support. Your guys' funds makes it possible for me to take time out of my schedule, create my content, shoot my videos, get production stuff and keep doing what I'm doing. So big thank you so very much. People like Janet, Angie, Flowing Through the Pines, Coco, Kadea, Still Ripples. We've also got Jess, Who else is here? Alex, Lisa, Reiki. I keep seeing the list moving. I wonder if there's people joining. Who else is on here? Paula, Shay. We've got, wow, what's going on? Why is this list moving? Are people joining? I feel like crazy looking at this. Jay, Shay, and we've got Salty Mama, Smoky Brown Eyes, Claire. This is so weird. Hold on a second, guys. I feel like this is like glitching out on me and I want to make sure I say hi to everybody. So hold on. Yeah, it's like updating. So I wonder if somebody got in there. Is anybody? Okay, maybe not. Sorry. Feels like a Mercury retrograde moment. Smoky Brown Eyes. Oh my goodness, it's still doing it. Okay, what's going on here? Is it the page that's skipping? Do you see that? Yeah, I did. I wish you guys could see what I can see right now because you'd be like, what the heck is going on? Every time I'm trying to read something, it keeps moving. Let's try this again. Come on, come on, come on. Is it gonna do it? All right, let's see if we can do this. 2 and 3. All right, let me try this again. Janet Ann, Flowing Through the Pines, Coco, Kadea, Still Ripples, Jess, Alex, Lisa, Reiki by Dre, Salty Mama, Shay, Paula. I keep going. Dorothy. Wow, it's still doing it. Susan Wexler, Taliba. Who else is here? Enchanted. Emma, Sharon Grant. Thunderspooks, Victoria Rusk, Grow Up Together, Erica, Christine, Darlene. I think I saw Laverne is in there. Sorry guys, it's moving. Cece, Claire, Dorothy, and that's everybody. So thank you guys so much for being members. I appreciate it and for bearing with me through this like really weird glitch. But yeah, if you guys want to become a member, you can get a reading from me once a month. And you'll see we're gonna have a bar that's gonna be kind of scrolling. So pretty much almost everybody who's already signed up for your reading, you'll see your name. I'll do a roll call and I'll read everything out and let you guys know who's already in the queue. And then if you hear your name coming up, it's just me letting you know that your reading is coming up. If you end up getting in the queue and you can't wait for your reading, no worries. You guys will be able to come back to this reading at a later date once we're no longer live, later tonight or tomorrow, and you can watch your reading. And you can also come back and give me feedback in the comments in how that plays out for you. All right, so thanks, Anne. Yeah, it has to be. There's like so much air in the sky right now. It's wild. All right, so other than my level 3 people, I have Katie and I have Christina, and also Rosie got in there and she sent a super chat. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're gonna start with Coco, Christine, and then Enchanted. And I'll be answering your guys' questions. All right, cool. What's up, Coco? What's going on? She says, hey, general check-in. Look into love. Venus in the second has brought a little financial boost, and I'm interested in socializing, meeting someone new, and traveling. Open any warnings or hurdles ahead. Well, whenever I see a Pisces rising within that like 24 to 29 degrees, obviously, if you've been following any of my reports, you know that this is a hot zone. And in many ways, we are already in the Venus retrograde shadow, right? So Venus is traditionally the ruler of your whole sign 8th house of other people's money. It's also like debt and loans and major transformation when it comes to joint resources. And obviously it's your Placidus 2nd house ruler. So it can mean that, you know, Venus getting ready to go retrograde through Aries and coming back into Pisces can represent a time in March and April where you're reassessing something about your values, your money, your personal style, what you possess, what you're spending money on, what you're holding on to, what you're kind of potentially giving back. So just be mindful of that. You know, I would say that to any late degree Pisces rising or early degree Aries rising, any real significant financial investments, changes maybe with your body, your appearance, anything of that nature. You just want to be a little bit more cautious, right? But it sounds great if you have already had some positive things happen with Venus going into your 2nd house. I feel like Pisces risings, especially, like Mars rules your whole sign 2nd house. So having Mars retrograde also has been a little bit of like reworking, not just matters of love and romance, but you know, your money. Not really any warnings per se, but if you remember back in the fall of 2024, we had a lunar eclipse in Pisces in September. So we're going to see, Saturn come into conjunction with that degree. I believe it was around 23. You're going to see Mercury retrograde around that degree. You're going to see Venus retrograde around that degree. And they're all meeting with the North Node in Saturn. So my interpretation is like focusing on your health, your vision, what's best for you, your needs. And when you watch Mercury and Venus retrograde side by side, there can be a lot of, well, what do I want or need from other people, as it's connecting to your 7th house of relationships and the South Node, as well as your 4th house of home and family. So a lot of Pisces risings are kind of reevaluating, where do I want to live, right? Where am I going to feel the most comfortable? What am I kind of wrapping up in regards to things from the past? And that's going to be the theme for the better part of like the next couple of months. You're going to see that clear into about May of 2025. Romantic relationships is going to be a combination of your 5th house, which is obviously Cancer, where you're experiencing a Mars retrograde. Later in February, Mars will be going direct. So that can mean where you've been reevaluating matters of the heart. Now you can find that relationships can actually proceed forward. This is also great for, creative projects, or maybe self-employment, or if you've been having some side hustles or some things that you've been working on or kind of putting together, they can now be a little bit more full steam ahead. She says, yes, that lunar eclipse is when I met my ex in September. He came back around, but not with a good enough offer, still need a permanent home. So there you go. I would imagine that the Mercury retrograde may still bring back people from the past. And it's not just because of the retrograde, it's the direct connection of your 7th house ruler and the South Node ruler retrograding into your 1st house. So my interpretation is that it's bringing you partners, people from the past. It could also be clients. It could be people who could be giving you some kind of advice. Fun factor, 7th house is your astrologer, your therapist, or some kind of like manager or coach. So definitely like checking in, the next couple of months can be really beneficial if you feel like you can't see something very clearly, or if you're feeling confused about what you want in terms of relationships or home. I would say you can also use this energy to get a better idea of where it is that you want to be living. Jupiter's now direct, so that is going to be helping you when it comes to your home life. I feel like you may see a turning point when Jupiter actually enters back into, the later degrees of Gemini. So turning point, I would say anywhere from about May into June, and you're actually going to see Mercury and Jupiter come into conjunction at the most southern part of your chart, which can indicate, you're making a big decision about where you're living, who you're living with, if you get a roommate, if you live with family, if there's a relationship that's kind of been going on that's providing you with an opportunity to change your living situation. So, for Sagittarius is in general, they have really good astrology with Jupiter 7th house to their sun for bringing new partnerships and relationships. But I don't think it's limited to just romantic relationships. Certainly things get a little colorful when you have the eclipses that are going to be taking place next month. So when you see the eclipse that's going to come through here around March 14th, and just so you guys know, you don't have to wait for the day of the eclipse to see something happen, right? Like I've had personal experiences with eclipses where I'm like, that's not going to happen for 4 weeks. And then boom, I have like an eclipse moment and I'm like, shit, I should have seen this coming. So it could be a couple weeks earlier. It can also be a couple weeks after, but having a full moon lunar eclipse in the 7th house means likely there is some big turning point or culmination revolving around relationships. The South Node can mean that you're finally, breaking something off with someone, or you're like, okay, I'm good here. We're done. I'm really walking away. It can also mean that this is a turning point where you're meeting someone. So this particular eclipse is connected to the South Node. So it's dealing with the past. So it can be karmic relationships. And the ruler is actually getting ready to retrograde, I think, the next day. So you're going to be asking yourself, do I value this person? Do I want to hold on to them? Do I want to let them go? Do I have opportunities that are coming to me that can benefit me financially? And fun fact about this particular eclipse is that the ruler, Mercury, is at the same degree as the solar eclipse, which will be taking place 2 weeks later. And if you notice, Mercury and Venus, they're retrograding around that 9 degrees. So for Pisces rising, it's a lot of like, I'm not letting relationships define who I am or make me feel like I am or am not good enough. I'm investing in myself. I'm focusing on my money. And I think for everybody, the retrogrades, the eclipses from Aries back into Pisces is like, it's the beginning of the end. There's a new chapter that's coming when it comes to your self-esteem and your financial future. And you're having to prioritize making decisions that are best for you, even if that means you have to cut some people from the team, right? Anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you and giving you some insight. I feel like this is going to be really big for making moves financially and also literal moves as well. Like I said, once you're kind of getting into the spring, I think you're going to see a lot more growth in that department. Especially having like, Jupiter that's going to oppose your moon, and you're going to have Uranus that's still kind of within range of your moon. So it's definitely kind of prepped and primed to have a change in your living situation. Hopefully that's helpful, Coco. All right, I've got Christine, and then we'll have Enchanted and Deanna. What's up, Christine? I'm just going to scroll back up here and see what's going on. Cashing in. I want to know how this full moon impacts me most and what I can expect. It's right on my midheaven, and what is best and what is the most challenging from this. Well, you guys know I'm always a fan of talking about when planets are on angles, right? Because angles mean that there is something very visible that is getting ready to be kind of in the spotlight. So she's referencing the full moon that's coming up here in about a little less than a week on the 12th of February. Full moons. One thing I would say, Christine, is go back in time, do a little bit of like mental detective work, and think about what intentions you had back in the summer of 2024 when we had a new moon in Leo. This last summer, we had a Mercury retrograde that was in the sign of Leo. Obviously it started in Virgo and it went into Leo. So I think that was a lot of you reevaluating, what are my goals? How can I make money, connect and network with other people? How am I reassessing the way that I relate maybe to some friendships or some professional connections? And then we've also had a Mars retrograde, which has been taking place in Leo as well. Very significant for Scorpio risings. 2 retrogrades tell me, first over the summer, you were like, I'm going in a different direction with work or with my status or long-term goals. There's some changes happening. Then the Mars retrograde since December has been about you kind of pulling back and either working on something or getting ready to be kind of like catapulted in a different direction. So the full moon tells the story of everything that you have kind of been working on thus far. Obviously, full moons, similar to eclipses, you can see the effects of this play out over like 2 weeks. So it can be right around the time of the full moon on the 12th, but you can see that shake out really up until like the end of February, right around the time we're having the new moon in Pisces. Well, let's break it down. The sun deals with your career. The moon deals with your belief, your philosophy, travel, as well as training, education, mentorship, all that stuff. So when you have this full moon come through, I think what's most interesting to me is that it's going to be squaring also your natal Uranus. So this is going to be not just a full moon on your midheaven. Sorry, this looks like a terrible diamond. But it's also going to be a grand fixed cross, okay? So you've got sun down here, Uranus here, moon here, and then Uranus here. So you've been in your Uranus opposition. There's been a lot of things changing revolving around relationships with other people. Uranus opposed Uranus in the 7th. And you're going to have moon square Uranus on both sides. So a lot of this is like, I think some major conclusions revolving around who am I out in the world, not just in terms of your career, but who am I? What is my identity? How can I shine? Who am I partnering with? Obviously, the square to Uranus, just purely looking at the full moon, means that there's going to be a curveball. There's going to be something that's going to come out of the blue unexpectedly, probably from either a relationship, a partnership, somebody you work with, some kind of financial relationship that you have that definitely changes things. And the sun and the moon in opposition are showing the polarity between your emotional identity and your career versus who you are behind the scenes at home in privacy, right? What I like about this is at least you have Uranus in Scorpio. So I would take a fixed square or a square of any kind any day over a T-square, because a T-square is kind of like, boom, you get kind of banged up out of nowhere. a fixed square or a square in general is going to make the wheel of the chart turn. So you're actually going to see that some major conclusion or some big career event or some big change at work is definitely going to change your relationships. It may help you find the balance between home and also your career. And I think having Uranus on your ascendant, you're Uranian, like you're born for this. Like you can handle Uranus aspects better than most people. So maybe you're going to feel like more enthusiastic about the change. You know, I know a couple people who have a lot of Virgo in their 10th house and their Scorpio risings, and kind of the feedback that I've been getting is like, oh, I'm working for, you know, this company and my boss is like a mess, or they're not leading very well, or, you know, I'm getting ready to kind of present some big proposal. So you want to use a full moon when it's in the 10th house, but especially when it's on the midheaven, to like do something big that's going to be making a shift in your career. For some of you guys, it's change at home or with the family, therefore it's changing, you know, my work or my career. So it really depends on what you've got going on. I think what's working in your favor, to be honest with you, is that you do have some sextiles to Pluto, so it's going to help embrace some of the change that's coming. I also feel like with the sextile to your Venus, it can be opening the door to bringing you transformations in relationships, but more opportunity for money, right? Jupiter is going to be hitting your Venus here pretty soon, so you could be seeing in this next year there's more lucrative offers or benefits or bonuses or things that can kind of be coming up for you as well. My thought is also, you know, looking at your north and your south node, right? So this is a full moon that's very close to your north node, ruled by the sun, and you obviously have your natal sun that is in Leo. So whole sign wise, Scorpio rising, right? Sun in the 10th house. So it's basically putting you in the driver's seat of being in charge. Mars has been retrograde on your sun, so you've been rethinking either directional change at work, going back to school, maybe taking a break from work and traveling. So it's going to help you kind of come into your purpose or your destiny, essentially. You might want to go and learn about Mars retrograde over your sun. You're going to see that kind of come up again in April. And you've also got transit Pluto this year that's starting to build into an opposition with your sun out of 4. So I'm wondering, like, you know, is there a storyline that in order for you to really kind of reach this kind of pinnacle turning point with your career, do you have to move? Is there a change that's going to happen, you know, going on on the home front or with your family or with roommates to kind of help further kind of boost you up a little bit to see some of these positive changes at work? One thing's for sure, expect the unexpected. Be mindful that all eyes are going to be on you, and there's definitely going to be some feathers that can kind of get ruffled a little bit, either with relationships or with home and family. But this is the one full moon that you get usually in your 10th house all year long. By the way, the next one that you're going to get, according to Placidus, you're going to have an eclipse on your Saturn. So that's going to be happening mid next month. And that may be indicating that there is a change going on with work pretty soon, or maybe with one of your bosses or with a leader, or maybe there is some shift going on revolving around work responsibility. This full moon might bring up the drama, kind of showing and illuminating some of those things. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Just catching up on the stream, guys. Yeah, Uranus oppositions are wild. Can you please confirm if you received payment? Yep, I'll do that in just a second, guys. I'm just going to get through a couple readings first, and then I will. All right, so we're going to have Enchanted, and then we're going to have Deanna and Dorothy. And if you guys are sending payments for readings, please put your questions in the memo box so I don't have to scroll back through the chat, because it's harder to find some of that stuff once I get to your reading. We've got Enchanted and then Deanna. What's up, Enchanted? How's it going? Hey, Kay. Thank you. All right, so let's see what Enchanted has to say. All right, cashing in. My birthday's on the 9th. We're going to the casino. Do you think I'll win? I love that. Well, let's take a look. Where do you currently live, Enchanted? So you're a couple hours short of getting the moon in your 5th house. which would be casinos. And there would be a trine to the North Node, trine also, well, there's kind of a trine to Uranus, so there's a possibility here, but we got to see something going on with your moon and also the 5th house. So it's kind of bordering on that depending on what time you get there. If you're going later in the evening, I don't know what time zone you're in, but you know, you get a couple hours from, let's say 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, Central Time. The moon will be in the 6th house, in the 5th house. So that's about games of chance and things of that nature. You're also coming into your Venus return. You're going to have a couple Venus returns. Pluto's no longer squaring your moon, so that's also good for games of chance and being able to make some money. And in theory, you know, the sun is going to be connected to your whole sign 5th, and so you do have a cazimi on your sun. So to me, it's like saying, like, you know, you could be up all night, you could be really kind of like adamant about, you know, trying to win big. Happy almost birthday, by the way. Let's take a look at your solar return. So if you're here, let me know. I'm curious to hear where you live. My guess is that if you're still there, later in the evening, so we're looking at 10:30 p.m. That's right when the moon's going to be in your 5th, and it's going to trine the North Node ruled by Jupiter. Games of chance with the hand, cards maybe, slot machines. I mean, I guess technically if you're gambling, everything's with hands, but this might be like stuff that's going to be like multiples. So I think of like slot machines and maybe like dice and stuff like that. Maybe not so much cards, but maybe like multiples that you're going to be pulling. I'm going to look at your return chart from your birthplace. Let's see. So let's look at your next solar return on the 9th. It's going to be very early in the morning. Your solar return will be like around 12:17 a.m. This is going to give you a Scorpio rising chart ruled by Mars. Mars is retrograde, obviously in the 9th. On the move during your solar return. Also might be hanging out with siblings, family, can be extended relatives or neighbors. And one thing I do like is that Venus is in the 5th house, so that can be good for games of chance. You are seeing a slight sextile to Jupiter. It's wide, but it's there. But the Sun Mercury on the cusp of your 4th makes me feel like this is going to be a turning point in regards to your home and your living situation stuff this year. Like that's a big deal because they're exactly conjunct and it's in a Scorpio degree. Mars trine the ascendant is also nice for reevaluating philosophy, education, travel, legal matters. And you're going to also see that Mars is in a trine with Saturn. So you're really committed to matters of the heart this year, creative projects, personal business, like all of that stuff. So I definitely feel like with all the 5th house energy in your solar return chart, you do have a little bit more luck than usual. I found especially Scorpio risings, if they have Venus in Aries, they do pretty well at games of chance. So I don't really think you're going to have any issues gaining something. Losses would be more Mercury, and the Sun conjunct Mercury can mean that, you know, you're like, well, I'm giving up old ways of looking at home and family, or I'm changing apartments, or I'm shifting something revolving around my emotional kind of like landscape this year. And I'm also really liking the fact that Jupiter is in a trine with Pluto as well. That's really increasing opportunities for wealth as well as partnerships and relationships. Clients can also be another theme that can kind of come with that. And Mars sextile Uranus is also saying like partnerships with people in other places, teachers, mentors, you know, that are going to be influencing something revolving around the way that you kind of live your life, especially when it comes to home and family. I get the impression that there's either going to be traveling, relocating, some kind of long distance back and forth thing that's going to be going on with this because it's on the cusp of your 9th house. North Node conjunct Neptune, ruled by Jupiter. So this is also opening the door to being more creative, I think, with your hobbies, and also when it comes to, you know, romance or even children, and that's kind of being improved through beneficial relationships and communication with other people. But I don't know. I mean, let me look at one other thing. Let's look at your annual perfection this year. So you're, let's see. So you're 48. So you're in a Mars year. So that basically means you're going to be watching when Mars is going through, you know, Aries, which will be next year. You're going to be watching also when planets are going through Aries, which is going to be March into April. And your natal Mars is located in the 11th house, whole sign. So Mars conjunct Pluto, you know, they're still kind of working through major changes revolving around your financial goals and some of your social networks and friends. So there can be like this theme of like major changes in terms of who you're relating to, who you're spending time with, you know, and also your goals revolving around how you're making money. But watch Mars transits this year. That's going to be very significant. When Mars comes back into Leo, when it's in your whole sign 5th house of chance, and it's trining your Venus, both transit Venus and natal Venus, I would say the days that I would go gambling would be when Moon and Mars are conjunct trining your Venus. So this is going to be May the 3rd, right here. And I would also say when maybe the Sun is coming into conjunction with Jupiter. Oops, that was 22. Where's the Moon? Okay, and then May 12th. Those are actually decent days for gambling. You got Mars conjunct Saturn. So you're going to be a little bit more conservative, but you might actually find that something happens there, especially around the time of your Venus return. Hopefully that's helpful for you. David's in the chat. He says, smack those like buttons. All right. Happy birthday, Enchanted. I hope it's a good one. Let us know if you win big. Take your lucky rabbit's foot with you. Your mojo bag too. All right, I'm gonna take Deanna and then Dorothy, and then we'll do and Sinistry. I'll give you guys an update of who I have in the queue. It's not too late if you guys want to get a reading. Scan the QR code. You can send a donation and we'll get you in. So if you hear your name, I have you. Okay, so Jessica S, Jason, let me see. Tricia, am I saying that right? Tricia? Angie said the difference, and we've got Christina and Katie. So I've got all of you guys, okay? All right, so let's see what Deanna has going on. What's up, girl? Help! Still in Ireland. Big convo during the new moon. Did not go the way I wanted. I decided to stay longer. Any advice about love and career? Well, you know, I would imagine, let me go back to the new moon. I would imagine that even though the new moon had trines to Jupiter, which was, I think, pretty positive for being able to talk about, hey, what are our goals? What are we doing together? Something to consider is right after this new moon, Uranus went direct. Okay, so it was saying there's about to be some major change in your status, relationship status, work status, the future of where you're going with long-term goals, all that stuff. And now, if we bring it to where we're at now, the next couple of days are so significant, okay? Here's why. You're gonna have a Kazemi that's gonna happen on Sunday. So that's gonna be some kind of like epiphany conversation, breakthrough. They may surprise you and say something that you don't see coming, or they may decide to approach the conversation again and try to talk to you about it. You're the sun. Mercury represents your resources and also goals. And it's about relationships sometimes with like lovers or friends. So watch for conversation on the 9th, read body language, see what's kind of happening here. Then right after the 9th, you're gonna see on the 10th and the 11th, Mercury is then gonna square Uranus, which rules your relationships. So there could be some, you know, kind of uncomfortable conversation or clearing the air or unexpected kind of conversation you're having with a partner. And then the Sun is gonna square Uranus. So the 10th house is your career, but it represents your partner's home. So it almost makes me feel like there's some nervous tension that they're having revolving around talking to about who's living where, who's moving for who, what that would change for their living situation, what that would change for your job. And like there's like this back and forth and you're waiting to see what's going to shift.
all of these planets that are in Aquarius, they're squaring Uranus basically from the left-hand side. So it's basically saying like, you have the power to create some kind of change. If that's something that you want to do, career change, relationship change, whatever. I think it's going to be brought on by these conversations. And also right after this, then on the 12th, we're going to have a full moon in Leo. So the full moon's going to be very close to your ascendant. So you'll be wearing your heart on your sleeve. You might be a little bit more emotional and kind of action-packed than usual. And it's going to square Uranus. So that's basically saying there is a significant turning point coming, revolving around relationship, commitment, long-term goals, and your career. Uranus is saying it's about shaking something up with your work and also simultaneously your partner's home. So I find like with fixed squares, there is like a give and take energy, and neither party is going to want to give. What's going to break that is going to be Uranus at 23. So we need to be thinking less about what's going to happen in the immediate future. Where do we see ourselves going, right? What's the plan? Like, do we see ourselves living together? Are we talking about getting married? You know, do we want to work together? What are we doing? Because Uranus is it's supposed to be kind of collective. And in order to do that, you guys got to figure out what's going to be the best place for you to be there, right? Or what's the best place for you to be. So I'm not going to candy coat it. It's going to get a little tense. It's going to get a lot tense. And then the next place my eyes go to is the fact that you're going to have Venus go retrograde right over your south node. Okay, so mark March 1st down on your calendar. Because Venus will turn direct right at this 10 degrees. 10 degrees? I'm like squinting, sorry, I'm getting old. And you know, 10s always deal with like something that takes a long time to get through. It's a lot of work. It requires effort. It's a challenge. It's like Capricorn energy. So you feel like you're going up the hill and you're trying to overcome something. Because Venus represents your career and it also represents your partner's money, there is something going on revolving around some reworking of these two things. And then on top of that, you're going to see Mercury retrograde there and you're going to see a solar eclipse. So the way that I look at this is like there's going to be like a negotiation process based off of what you guys decide to do in terms of your relationship. You're going to be like, what makes the best sense financially? You know, who's making the most money? Where are we going to get the most bang for our buck with where we're living? How can we focus more on saving money? Like, you know, what is the change that we're going to be making? I look at the ruler of your south node and it's Mars at an 8, which means that the change, 8, has to come from a foreigner, 12th house, and it's a boyfriend, right, Leo? So somebody's having to give something up. Somebody's having to make some kind of sacrifice in order to kind of like better support you. And then you're going to see Saturn, your chart, the sun, your chart ruler, coming into conjunction with Saturn, which means they're going to have to be willing to show up, put up, emotionally, financially, physically, and make some kind of sacrifice or be more so invested for you guys to be able to kind of build a future together. And then therein lies the March, April, kind of May process that you're going to be going through. The fact that you have so many aspects going on over your south node, I'm gonna just be fair here. You know, having that Mars retrograde in the 12th house means that there's karma, there's blockages. Other people might be facing blockages, or they're going to go, well, I can't move. How am I going to work? You know, where am I going to get a job? What's going to happen? I moved to the United States. I got to wait for, you know, a work permit. I'm just going to be sitting around, and how am I going to make money? You know, you're going to hear some of that stuff. This is some karmic stuff that is needing to be worked through. You know, to better understand your partner, what I always tell my clients and I always tell my astrology students is take your astrology chart and literally rotate it 180 degrees. Read your chart from the 7th house as their ascendant, right? And then the 1st house is their partner. And if you flip the chart, you can see what's going on. So if we look at this from the perspective of Aquarius, all this energy is going through Aquarius. They're trying to figure out what they want. They're afraid to make a change, make a shift with their living situation, move. They're also going back and forth with a partner, trying to figure out what's going to happen. Maybe they're afraid that a partner is going to kind of cut them loose. Mars retrograde, conjunct Mars. They're going to have an eclipse that's going to be in their 3rd house, which means they need to speak up, and there's going to be a need for them to either learn something or start figuring out how to travel. So it's really helpful because you can kind of see a lot of the stuff that's going on from their perspective. And that's not even looking at their natal chart. So if you guys don't have your partner's natal chart, look look at your chart inverse. It's going to tell you everything that's kind of going on with them, and also in regards to their perspective. Anyway, I think that this is something that's going to take a little bit of time to unfold. And in my perspective, you know, you have Uranus in your 4th house. So you've moved around a lot. There's been a lot of destabilizing things in your life, obviously with Uranus in the 4th and Moon conjunct Pluto, and you've had to work really hard to create stability. And there is some reluctance to give that up. What you are open to doing with Uranus in the 10th house is changing your career. You are open to doing something different, something unique, and working with the collective in some way or doing something unconventional. But for you to do that, somebody's got to be willing to give, and there needs to be some kind of change that's going to be happening with their home. Your 10th house is their 4th house, right? So the peak is just the build up until the full moon, but then the unraveling or the changes that are going to be happening are going to happen more with the retrogrades. And I'm going to be honest with you, you know, Saturn is your traditional 7th house lord. So to me, this feels like a very defining moment in your relationship with Venus retrograde on the South Node. Is this going to be too much work? Are neither one of us willing to give? Is it going to be too difficult financially? Is it going to take too much time? And then you're going to see Venus retrograde in conjunction with Saturn and Mercury, which I think the real turning point is going to be about May. So there's a method to the madness, right? I'm pretty optimistic, though, that, you know, now that you no longer have Uranus in hard aspect to your Uranus or your ascendant, you know, things can actually proceed forward very, very well. But I'm also a realist, and I know that Mars in opposition to Pluto for Leo risings has not been a joke. There's been a lot of partners who have been reluctant or afraid to change, particularly their career, or shift something revolving around giving up some kind of power or control. Now the next lesson you're going to have is going to be Uranus square Saturn. So it is going to be in your whole sign 11th house where your goals are changing, but it's still in your 10th house where you're going to be kind of oscillating between two potential careers. And it's putting the pressure on you to see whether or not you're actually going to be open to making a change with relationships and also with money, right? So you'll have to keep me updated and let me know what happens. But I would say to anybody with the Venus in Aries, Mercury in Aries, solar eclipse in Aries, you know, a lot of us are going to get our butts kicked if we're acting impulsively. So if we just suddenly go, you know what, I'm not willing to change, you're not willing to change, we're done here, you know, a lot of us can feel a lot of remorse and a lot of regret, especially when planets go retrograde back into Pisces, where we're like, oh my God, I said I didn't want them and I'm done, and now they don't want me, and what am I gonna do, you know? Pump the brakes a little bit, let's give it a little bit of time to breathe, and let's see if there can be a way for you guys to find a middle ground, but eventually something's gonna have to give. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Deanna. If you guys have not already gotten in the queue, you can get in now before we close it up. We got Dorothy. What's up, Dorothy? Did I have it on here? Let me pull you up. Dorothy, was it 8? I want to make sure it was 8:27, right? Cat Venuses are so patient, for the most part. For the most part. Let's see what Dorothy says. I met a guy around the Pisces eclipse last year. It looks like there's a ton happening for my Venus, Mercury, and Aries. There's an eclipse in March. Do any messages come through? Let's take a look. Is the sound a little choppy? Let me know. No sound is choppy. Okay, hold on. We're going to see if it's a connection issue. Is it my mic? I did. Is that better? Do you still feel like it's choppy? I was having an issue with my mic earlier when I was filming. I feel like it's tired. I feel like it's sick of listening to me talk, to be honest with you guys. She's my only Dorothy. Sounds fine to you. Okay, just all caps in the chat. If I start going out, just let me know, so that way I'm not rambling. All right, Dorothy. Well, first of all, I'm going to get a good look at these planets. It's so funny. I've spoken to a couple people who are, no, you're cutting off every other word. Okay, so it could be the connection. I'm not sure. Anybody else noticing there's an issue with the sound? Your mouth was a little off with the sound. Okay. Sounds great. All right, I'm going to keep going. I've talked to a couple people from 85 who were born with Mercury and Venus retrograde in Aries. So good thing is that, you know, you're kind of coming into, you know, a home field advantage, right? So not only, oh, sounds good, sounds choppy. There's got to be something going on with it's got to be the internet because some people are saying it sounds fine. Okay. I'm noticing the issue. It might be the connection. All right, well, sounds fun for you. All right, I'm gonna keep going. So Mercury obviously is the mind, and then Venus is the heart, right? And then, you know, Aries energy is impulsive. So there is this sense, because both of these planets are retrograde, that you may be a little less impulsive maybe than some other people with these Aries placements. Anyway, home field advantage. You're gonna see the same Mercury-Venus retrograde, which you were born under. So I think that you're gonna kind of navigate this a little bit better maybe than most people. But when you're having returns, okay, so it looks like your Venus return, the first Venus return of several is going to be here. So right around February 15th, 16th, okay, you're going to see your first Venus return. So it will come back to this degree. So make a note of that day. Then you're going to see the beginning of March, Venus will turn retrograde. You're going to have your Mercury return, which is going to be here, March 8th. You're going to have your Mercury-Venus conjunction, March 11th. And you're going to see that there will be another Venus return happening on March 13th. And then you're going to see another Mercury return, which is going to be happening on March 21st. I know it sounds like I'm just like rambling stuff off to you, but these are all days that I think are going to be really significant in regards to relationships, friendships, networking, meeting people, all of that stuff. Just having Venus in the 11th house, does it mean that if you go out to parties and you network and you socialize or you get online or whatever, you could meet people? Sure. It's also a great time to be going and getting active with new people. So like fitness classes, hiking, walking groups, running groups, health groups, anything like that can be really beneficial for meeting people, especially meeting new female friends. Jupiter is more connected to your romantic relationships. And so what's kind of happening is while this retrograde is beginning, it's sextiling Jupiter. And Jupiter on your ascendant all year is definitely kind of bringing in new relationships and partnerships as well. Possibly down the road when these Mercury retrogrades are over, we're getting closer to June, Mercury and Jupiter are going to come together on your ascendant. So you're definitely going to end up having another opportunity to meet someone. But the 11th house is parties, gatherings, get-togethers, networks, going to events, and Aries is new people. So these are people who you have not met before. So my advice is yeah, get out there and meet people. Maybe track the moon. When the moon is in Sagittarius, Aries, and also Gemini, you're much more likely to meet people. So I don't know if you have like an astrology app or if you've got like a lunar app that can kind of track when kind of people, when the moon is making aspects. Those would be the times that I would be trying to going out and doing things. And the reason being is that when the moon is on your ascendant, it's hitting your Jupiter, 7th house ruler. It's also sextiling the 7th house, which is going to be about socializing. When it's in the 11th house, you know, you're going to be able to meet people. And when it's in the 7th house, it's bringing up the themes of relationships and it's trining your 11th. So those are the days that you're going to want to watch out for. I would imagine, just looking at your Venus returns. Where do you live now, Dorothy? If you guys can't hear me, just refresh your window, because apparently that works. Are you still in Ohio? So it looks like you're going to have your returns on February 16th, March 14th, and May 11th. And my interest, Virginia, where in Virginia do you live? I want to look at your Venus return. Where in Virginia are you, Dorothy? Fairfax. All right, so I'm going to look at the last one because I feel like the one that's in May is going to be the completion. So it's going to kind of show me what's going on with the love stuff. So this is your final Venus return on May 11th. Scorpio rising chart ruled by Mars, Mars in the 10th. So this is actually really positive for career and also just kind of standing out in the crowd. And we've got Venus on the cusp of the 6th house. So it is mirroring like some kind of shift that's going on revolving around your habits, your work, and your daily routine or relationship with coworkers, or maybe meeting people with coworkers, or meeting people like in a fitness or a wealth kind of area. And then you've got the full moon. So this will be your Venus return coming into a full moon in Scorpio, highlighting the 1st house and the 7th house. So relationship and partnership. The sun's also approaching a conjunction with Uranus. So an unexpected meeting, or maybe going back and forth with somebody, materializing as a change in your status. So you could get to May and you could actually be in a relationship. Watch for relationships with coworkers though. Venus conjunct Neptune makes me feel like there can be some people that are a little tricky or maybe less than trustworthy that can be going on there. Okay. Anyway, come back and let me know what happens with your Venus return. I'm curious to hear what happens. All right. I have to do Anne's synastry. Let me update my list here. I know that there are some people who are having issues hearing me, so if you can't hear me, then just refresh the video. All right, so I'm going to update this list really quick here. So we've got Anne. All right, so Sazim, what is your name on PayPal if you sent a PayPal? It looks like I've got Tricia, Jason, Jessica, Nay, Janae, and Shalika. So which one of these is you? And I have to pull up that email that I received for, let's see. Okay, so let's look at Anne. You figured it out. All right, so let's look at this, and then I need to plug the other person in as well. Eric, okay. All kinds of weird technical issues tonight. What's going on? 1995, 3:30 p.m. Okay, so Eric, 9/7/95, 3:30 p.m., Portland, Oregon. Okay. All right, let's look at this with Amy. Hold on a second. No, that's not the right chart. right, I think this is better now. All right, so Anne, I've got you here 4/21/71, 11:58 p.m. And then Eric is 5/7/95, 3:30 p.m. Okay, all right, I got it. Let's read this email. He's approaching his first Saturn return, and you'll see his Saturn sits exactly on my moon in Pisces. There's so much going on in Pisces right now between Saturn, my moon, Venus at play with Neptune, Saturn, Venus retrograde. My question is, my nearly 30-year-old son has an ongoing addiction that has put him in the hospital 3 times now with pancreatitis, and one incident with a touch of fentanyl that he died and was revived between summer of 2023 and now. He lives in my house and I'm still having a very hard time laying down boundaries, kicking him out. He won't stay clean after his recent bout with pancreatitis. With this event, full Saturn return coming up, do you see us getting along well or parting ways? Okay, so this is going back and forth between you and your son. All right, just trying to understand what's going on. So quick stuff here. All right, just looking at your chart. So your 5th house is your kid, and Uranus is going back and forth over your Saturn. That's your chart ruler, which means basically you've got a kid that's kind of really testing your patience. And 22 is about like long-standing issues and issues revolving around like maturity, and also like Taurus can be about like not substances but like indulgences, like something that somebody is like indulging in that they're having a hard time letting go of. Whole sign, you have Sun and Saturn in your 5th. And what's going on right now is that Pluto is coming into a square with your Sun. So you're experiencing some kind of power and dynamic issue with a male child, especially over resources. Yes, Saturn is coming up on your moon, but more importantly, and you have Saturn and Neptune on your Venus. And that is your, that is your 5th house ruler. So having Saturn, which is about boundaries, responsibility, and maturity on your moon, you're having a hard time with relating to somebody at home within the family or relationships. And you have Saturn coming into conjunction with Venus with Saturn and Neptune. There's definitely going to be a storyline here revolving around going back and forth with your child, especially how you communicate with them and like what it is that you're trying to convey to them. And you may feel like it's really hard for you to embody that Pisces energy right now because Saturn is going to say, hold on, have boundaries, be a little bit more tough love. And then you're going to see that there's going to be a Neptune conjunction. So if you're too passive, or if you're too understanding, or if you're too generous or anything like that, there can be a sense of you being like, oh, I regret that, right? Now your 5th house is your kid. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So addictions and secrets is going to be of your children, your 12th house. Okay, so this is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is going into your whole sign 6th, which means that there can be issues with communication with your kid. There can be people keeping secrets from you, so on and so forth. 100%, I feel like this entire year with Pluto square your Sun, the lesson here is about being like, I'm not going to cover expenses or continue to provide if you're not taking responsibility for yourself and being mature. And like, obviously don't mess around with Sun Pluto all year long. I mean, you're going to still deal with issues revolving around addiction. Certainly, I think of like Pisces can be, okay, going to a hospital, going to a rehab, going to jail, but it can also be about this awareness that's like, okay, this is not good for me. I need to give this up. All right, so let's look at his aspects really quick. So this is Eric. Sag rising. Obviously, whole sign, he's got Saturn in his 4th. So karma revolving around home, family, themes revolving around that stuff. 8/26. Oh, why did I have? Oh, it says Eric's info is 9/7/1995. So not the right info. I'm looking right at the email. So let me change this. So it's 8/26/95. What is it? What time is it? It's okay. everything still correlates with your chart. Now we're just looking at Eric's chart. So August 26, 1995. And what's the time? Is it the same time, 3:30? I want to make sure before I start looking at this chart. Anne, are you there? Let me know. I want to make sure that I give you the right info. Hello, hello. Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Anne, if I don't get an answer, because I have to make sure I have the right birth information, both the date and the time, for me to be able to give you an answer. So I will have to come back to this. Let me pull up my list. Who else do I have here? Anything? Anything in? Anything? All right, I'm gonna have to come back to you. All right, we're gonna go to Katie. So Katie, we'll see what happens with Anne, Christina, and Rosie. You guys are all on deck. Thanks, Miss Martin. I'll try to remember that and put that in there. You might have to remind me. All right, we got Katie J. And Katie J's got questions about synastry with another person. And let's go read that. All right, so Katie, I've got you here May 15th, 98 at 6:20 p.m. in Albuquerque. And then I've got the other person is April 9th, 95, 1:35 p.m. That was in Ohio. What are the key takeaways? Saturn return seems to be having an impact on the stability of the connection. What does spring look like? Ascendant conjunct North Node stands out as positive to me, but Jupiter conjunct Saturn has been tough. My Jupiter often getting defeated by the seriousness of Saturn. All right, so Katie is Scorpio rising, Sun, and Taurus, Moon, and Capricorn. Venus in the 6th. All right. And then we've got the other person who's a Leo rising. They've got Sun in Aries, and their Moon is in Leo as well. So when you're mentioning, let me go back to your question. What does the spring look like? Ascendant conjunct the North Node stands out to me, but Jupiter, Saturn. Okay. So obviously, you know, I'm going to look at where there's conjunctions, right? Especially on the angles. Or just with planets in general, which you guys share a fair amount of. You're born relatively close together, but still, there's a lot of planets that are conjunct here. It's been my experience, you know, looking at the North Node Ascendant conjunction, that this person comes in and they help you embrace the themes of your Ascendant. So change, transformation, regeneration, power, healing, releasing, letting go, and it's going to be brought forth by both a combination of your Mars and also their Mars. So their Mars, it's wide, but it slightly squares the North and the South Node. And then also you guys have, let's see, North Node Lilith. So that's kind of like a sexy aspect. It's not just North Node Ascendant. The Lilith is like, it's about raw sexuality, attraction, chemistry. It's kind of feisty. I like that aspect. His moon square your north and now south node means that he could change something about the future or the fate of your career, or your, professional identity, or something revolving around your relationship being public. And then the south node in the 7th means, I think you would like that, being a Taurus sun, that you're like, okay, this is easy, this is comfortable. I can definitely see a lot of the common traits and things that we have, but this is also like reminding you of the past. So themes of past relationship happenings and maybe clearing out some kind of karma. Mercury is very close to the south node, so you guys should communicate very well, or there should be something revolving around like maybe sometimes, being telepathic, reading each other's minds, not having to try too hard to communicate, like that comes very easily. And I actually really like when people have planets square each other's nodes. So, his moon and his Mars square the north and south node means that he can sometimes be a little militant, or he can nudge you, or he can kind of be a little bit more assertive, but it's trying to kind of bring out the romantic in you, Leo, creativity, drama, things like that. I think the Sun Venus is nice. I like that. I think the Mercury Venus is nice because you got to speak the same love language, so that's great. And I really like the Venus conjunct Jupiter. Like, I get that Saturn is there, but because Jupiter softens that aspect of Saturn, you might feel like, well, they're not like the most romantic person in the world, or they're taking time to open up, or, it's kind of challenging to get them to be vulnerable. Like, actually, once they get past their Saturn return, it's like that will improve. I don't really see that being a bad thing. The harshness of Saturn is softened with Venus being there. Where I think there's sometimes some challenges, although you may navigate this better than most people, is like they do have planets in your 6th house, and the 6th house can mean that you can feel like it requires work, physical work, emotional work, work on the relationship, making time for each other. And your natal Saturn is in Aries, so you have some kind of karma revolving around like relationships and partnerships with Aries in general. So when Aries kind of come into your life, you're kind of working through some of those things, right? What about Saturn and Venus in the 8th? I've seen some intensity for sure. So let's split this. Let's flip this around. All right, so they're a Leo rising. They have natal Saturn, Venus in the 8th house. Your south node is relatively close. It's a pretty wide conjunction, but it is there. And your Jupiter is on the cusp. So technically your Jupiter in their chart is in the 9th. Well, if you look at their astrology, they have Uranus on the descendant. So much of what's going on in your relationship right now is very much connected. I mean, you're going to go through your own stuff too, but it's very much connected to their astrology. Pluto just entered into conjunction with Uranus. So by whole sign, Pluto's already making massive changes in terms of their relationships with another person. This has been ongoing as Pluto has been opposing Mars on their ascendant. So there's a lot of like, okay, is it them that needs to change, or is it me? And you're going to see this energy with Mars retrograde over their ascendant and their moon, where there's like subconscious things that's kind of coming up that's creating some drama and creating some friction. Definitely very heated in November, early January, and you're going to see this again in mid-April as Mars and Pluto oppose each other. The 7th house, you have your Neptune there, which, they have Uranus. So it can mean that they're kind of back and forth revolving around relationships, and they could feel like maybe that somebody is in or somebody is out. Also, their your Venus lands on their Mercury in the 9th. So it's good for learning, philosophy, traveling, that kind of stuff. And honestly, I look at this chart and I'm like, okay, I thought that just them having Moon Mars in your 10th house was a lot, but look at all the planets you have in their 10th house. See, Leo placements get so agitated by Taurus placements. Why? It's 10 signs away from their sign. The same way Scorpio risings get agitated by Leo placements. It's 10 signs away from their sign. So you guys both have this like dominant energy in the 10th house where there can be this feeling of like one person kind of pushing somebody else's buttons. But as you mature and you learn more about the relationship, that can be used to work together. That could be used to have a very public, long-standing, recognized relationship. That could be used to encourage each other when it comes to your career. Like a lot of really good things. And, the South Node Mercury in the 10th house, he may feel like because you're a Taurus and like, my husband's Scorpio rising, Sun in the 7th house, he's got Mercury in the 7th house, and he's got Venus in Aries. there is this energy with the 6th house Venus that's like, okay, let me help you with things, right? Like, let me do it for you, or like, let me fix it. So there can be this feeling with that in your chart where it's like you try to help other people be the best versions of themselves, or get things organized, or fix things, or be more productive. And like partners get agitated by that because you have Mars in your 7th. Well, in this chart, all that moves to the 10th. So he may feel like you're literally managing him in some capacity, or you're kind of telling him what to do, and he does not like that. Especially with Mars square Mars, and with Saturn that's kind of slightly squaring the moon, there can be this feeling of like, yeah, you being more dominant. So, you know, like you having all those planets in the 10th house, you have the opportunity to encourage him. And remember, the South Node is in Taurus. So your lesson is to, you know, not just be about taking your time and being slow. It's about being like, no, let's get the show on the road. So there's a fine line between being helpful and also maybe being critical with some of the placements that you have in his chart. Neptune and Uranus in the 7th house is a little tricky. That makes me feel like, especially with the square to the north and the south node, you guys are going to have an unconventional relationship. It's going to be different. It's going to be unusual. There's going to be something revolving around, you know, learning how to talk about the future of where your relationship is going rather than just kind of like status quo. And I think that Leo rising horoscopes right now are a combination of their reluctance to want to make changes, and also dealing with partners who are afraid of, you know, taking the next steps forward. And so Leo risings are getting a little frustrated revolving around some of that stuff. So you're going through that. So it's like, honestly, until you get through the spring of this year, you guys are still going to be a little back and forth, because Mars is squaring his north and his south, your north and south node, and also Pluto is coming into a square with your north and south node. There's nothing here that is radically concerning. If there was a lot of planets in the 12th house, if there was a lot of aspects in the 8th house, I would be like, well, you know, you got a Mercury-Venus aspect. Your Venus sees his Mars. That's good. And your Mars sextiles his Venus. So your guys' Mars and Venus see each other. You know, I don't really see that there's anything that's keeping you guys from being in a relationship. It's more looking at the transits, right? That's at least my thought process. And then when there's a really strong Uranus transit, like Pluto on his Uranus, there's changes in a relationship. Equally Saturn. So when you think about what's going to be happening with Saturn finally leaving his natal Saturn and also like leaving his Venus, he may be more open to more serious relationship talks as it's coming into conjunction with your Jupiter. And that's going to be the degrees which you're going to see Mercury and Venus kind of retrograding around. I think it's going to get to about 25 degrees. So it's not going to go as far back as 22, but it's going to be close. And from the perspective of like the Scorpio rising chart, you know, it's actually, they're not bad transits. You're going to see your 7th house ruler retrograde back into the 5th, which is, okay, if we're going to be in a relationship, do we really love each other? Can we make this work? Do I feel loved? Do I feel fulfilled? You know, are we going to be able to build a life together? Are we talking about, you know, a future or a family? And then you're going to continue to see eclipses here for like the next, you know, 18 months. I mean, if anything, I think it's the setup that if you're really truly going to make relationships work in a serious way, there's going to have to be a change in the home dynamic, and there's going to have to be plans for how you guys can be together, you know, in the future, and what you guys both want out of relationships in preparation before Saturn comes into your conjunction with Venus, which is going to be like next year. So, you know, Venus in Aries is not an easy placement. There's definitely a lot of conflicts with people in relationships, and sometimes partners end up kind of being combative. And then you have Venus in the 6th, which dealing with issues with relationships and where they sometimes run away from stuff, or they can be kind of secretive. So I would want to get ahead of some of that stuff now. And I've never seen a Saturn-Venus transit that didn't manifest as like either a strengthening of a bond of a relationship, people can get more serious, or it can manifest as like a situation where it's like, this isn't working. You go through a breakup, and then while you're in the midst of the Saturn-Venus transit, you end up meeting somebody who could be a long-term partner. But Pluto coming into a square with your north and your south, with his nodes and your ascendant and your descendant at a 4, tells me that the next year is about making a change on the home front so you can have relationships and home. Yeah, Pluto square your Mercury right now. So it's a lot of like intimacy issues, vulnerability, psychological changes, money changes. And that's the beginning of the square that will then come into square with your 7th house cusp. I would say with eclipses in your 5th house and retrogrades in your 5th house, be very careful. Unless you're trying to get pregnant, be very careful with getting pregnant. Because you're going to see with the retrogrades, a lot of Scorpio risings are going to unexpectedly get pregnant. And then it's going to be like sextiling Uranus. And it's going to be like, okay, what do we do now? So funny. Do you feel like that Mars in the 7th house triggers people? You provoke people subconsciously. You're not aware that you do it, but you do it. And you do it because you're trying to get people to see like their worth, but also Sun Mars in the 7th, you can bring in kind of demanding, kind of heated solar people. And of course, you've got a guy with Moon and Mars and Leo, right? Anyway, hopefully that's helpful in giving you some insight. Hey, Anne, let me go back to you. Yes, we're having lots of tech issues. So let's see. So it was 3:30 p.m. Okay. So looking at this, he's a Sag rising. All right. He has got Saturn in his whole sign 4th. It's in the 3rd, but it can be mental health issues, communication issues. Obviously, Pisces can be substance. And then he has, let's look at the transits. The eclipse is going to be right on his IC, which makes me feel like there can be a change in direction going on, where when the eclipse comes in at the end of March, there's been a Mercury retrograde, which is his relationship with other people or relatives or siblings, and then a Venus retrograde, which is going to be whether or not, he's having it out with a woman at home. Yes, there can definitely be a change, that can happen, with his home and his living situation, like 100%. So, you're not really going to know until those phases are over. So you're going to have some clarity maybe by the end of March, but this can take up until the time that Venus and Neptune and Saturn are kind of in the same sign as the 4th house. So by June, so April, May, June, these are the months where there's likely going to be a change, but the solar eclipse is going to kick this off. And even if they end up staying there, then by the time Saturn comes through there next spring with Saturn and also Mars, they will officially be out of their home. Now, Mars also rules Eric's 4th house. And if you look at what's going on right now, Mars is retrograde. So it looks to me like a mother figure, Cancer, is reevaluating her support, 8th house, when it comes to the home, Cancer, and also like resources. Like, I wonder if it's a situation where you're going to sit him down and be like, I can't support you or keep you in a space where you're not helping yourself. And I'm willing to help you get help you get sober, help you get clean, help you have a safe space. But, I'm not going to be contributing to, you continuing to have some of these issues. Really, really difficult stuff. I think when I look at his chart also, like his chart ruler is in the 12th house. So it can mean that there are some unhealthy, habits or tendencies, especially at a 6. And when you look at Jupiter, it also squares Venus, his 6th house habits lord. And Venus is in a sign that is debilitated in Virgo. So once again, health habits, issues revolving around substances, and it's squaring the moon. So it can bring up a lot of emotions revolving around home and family. With the South Node of the 4th house, their lesson basically is to kind of like get out of the past, get out of the home. The lesson is to like move away from home, go and like become self-made, become independent. And Mars being the ruler of the 4th house means that mom tries to be fair and balanced, but also is trying to take an approach of like not just trying to be their friend or their support system, but being like a little bit more tough love. Mars in the 10th, like a mom who's trying to be mom and dad, but is like, I can't do it. What's the storyline here with the siblings? Because usually Saturn in this 3rd house could mean like there is like a sibling that's trying to kind of convince them or talk to them or trying to help them, or there's some back and forth going on there. I'll let you guys know with the stream in just a second with who I've got up next. I'll call out the names. It's hard to say how long it'll be, but I'll call them out. And then the other thing is that you're going to want to watch is, there is going to be eclipses that are going to be happening in Virgo. So you're going to see, Here, where's the eclipse? Here, March 14th, lunar eclipse in Virgo, very close to Mercury, relationships with other people, and also Chiron, wounding. The moon could be a mother figure, and the ruler is Mercury. And look, Mercury is on the eclipse degree. It's retrograding with Venus. So I don't see you like kicking him out per se, but being like, this is what's going to change at home. And like, there's going to be some expectation of some changes and accountability and them taking action and bettering themselves. Otherwise, this is on the cusp of the 5th. Could be like, well, okay, I'm not living here. You know, I'm moving in with a romantic partner, or I'm moving in with a friend, or I'm living with a sibling. You know, something like that could come up. But I will say this. Saturn returns in Pisces are notorious for, if they don't take care of addictions, mental health issues, substances, isolation tendencies, it can be a very serious thing. And usually I need to see several different things happening. Saturn in the 4th is notorious for, you know, sometimes people don't make it through their Saturn return. I'm not saying that will happen, but that's very common, especially when you have Mercury in opposition with Chiron, mental health issues, drug issues. He's also currently got Mars that's retrograding on the 8th house cusp. So the 4th house, 8th house, and 12th house whole signs are very important. And you've got the 12th house Lord retrograde in the 8th, so there is a need to go into some kind of substance abuse counseling, or maybe needing to go into like a treatment or a rehab facility. Mars retrograde I wouldn't mess around with in the 8th house, because there can be health problems and like loss of life, and that's trining Saturn. I can think of about 3 or 4 clients just off the top of my head that had their Saturn return simultaneously while having retrogrades on the IC. And all of them overdosed, committed suicide, drowned, ended up going missing. You know, these are pretty common when you see stuff in Pisces. So like, I would be very, very, very careful the next 2 or 3 months. And I think one of the best things you can do is lay down the law with not wanting to further inhibit, you know, or in allowing or supporting some of this stuff, and trying to see if you can work with the trines to the 12th house and be seeing if you can get them into like a rehab or a facility. So that way you can kind of take a step back and you can go like, okay, well, you know, I know that I'm not supporting these habits, but also I'm not abandoning them in the process and making them feel alone and like kicking them out. Because I feel like this is a very pivotal time with the South Node on some of their Virgo aspects, that I don't think just turning them loose is a good idea, because there's going to be some very critical transits happening between now and about May. I'm really sorry to hear you're going through that. That's really difficult. But the positive is like, they've got a chart with all these planets in Virgo. Like, this is the kind of person who would come out the other side of an addictive, you know, kind of pattern or habit, and they learn how to help heal other people, right? Like, that becomes like their career, or that incentivizes them to go back to school, or to become a nurse, or to become like a drug rehab counselor, or somebody who's going to be, you know, doing something that can help people. So there's like a lot of like really great things in this that I feel like they can tap into in the midst of the Saturn return, but very highly aspected Saturn with the oppositions and also some of the squares that they're experiencing. They really would benefit from a counselor right now, to be honest with you, you know? Anyway, I hope that that's helpful. Let me know. Sending you lots of good thoughts as you're going through that with Eric. And yeah, positive vibes for you guys. All right, I'm trying to keep up with the questions and also the chat, so I'm kind of going in and out of this. So we're going to have Christina and Rosie that are coming up next. And let's see, Miss Martin, you too. All right, let me see what's going on with the questions, because I see people are asking things. I'll do another rundown, but basically you'll hear me call your name. So if you're not from around here, I'm managing the chat, looking at the chart, and also trying to kind of manage, you know, the readings that are coming in. So every couple of readings, I will update you guys and let you know who I'm going to be reading. But if you hear me call your name, that means that, hey, your reading is coming up. So this is who I have. Readings are now closed. If you got in, you got in. So Lika, Janae, Nay in the Bay, Jessica, Jason, Miss Martin, and Christina. Those are the readings that I have. If you hear your name again, that means your reading is coming up. I know some of you guys are still playing catch up because I've had issues with my my live, so I apologize. Okay. All right, so let's go and look at Christina and see what Christina has to say. And I actually might have to add some people now. Let's see. Do I? I think I spelled that like all weird, but that's okay. November 22nd, 1970, 7:02 a.m. in New York. All right. Christina says, single question reading, looking to possibly retire November of 2025 instead of November of 2026. Does this look possible or probable? All right, well, let's take a look. What annual perfection are you in right now? So you're in a Taurus year, you're 54, so Venus is your time lord, and your natal Venus is retrograding the 12th in Scorpio. Man, with all that Scorpio and your moon in the 10th house, like, usually people like that don't want to retire. Just kidding. So I was looking at that because I want to see what's going on with Venus, and certainly the 12th house can be about wrapping things up, right? But you want to know about November. So something I will say that's going to be happening, Christina, is you're going to see that there are eclipses coming through your 10th house, right? So you're going to see one that's going to be on March 14th with the South Node. So this means that emotionally you're kind of wrapping your head revolving around what's changing with work. What am I clearing out? Am I getting ready to retire? Do I want to? Do I not? Recently, the South Node's been on your Pluto, so I feel like you might already feel like you're spent and you're ready to go. You're just trying to figure out when to do it. This eclipse is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is going to be retrograding into the 4th. So sometimes when we have a solar eclipse, it plays out for months, but lunar eclipses, I feel like, are more active, you know, in the immediate moment because it's closing a cycle. So honestly, as crazy as this sounds, there can be stuff going on at work where there's bosses, you know, stepping down, or people changing positions at work, or there's something changing with your company. They could be offering like severance to some people. They can be offering also retirement packages. And you might be going like, well, do I want to take it this year or do I want to take it next year? And they might be trying to entice people to leave. And you're going to see some kind of change at work with an eclipse in the spring, okay? But you're asking specifically about the fall. So then we're going to go to the eclipses that are going to be in September. And here you have a solar eclipse, which means brand new beginning, conjunct Pluto, your chart ruler, with a Mercury cazimi. So it might mean that you're like, I'm getting ready to retire. Now, granted, a solar eclipse doesn't mean it happens this day. So it's not meaning it's going to happen on the 21st of September. But within 6 months, usually that's something that kind of takes place, maybe a year. This is very significant for you because also the South Node's hitting your moon. So that tells me that you're going to go, you know what? If I've got the money saved, if I've got the investments, if I've got the benefits, if my insurance is going to be covered, heck yeah, I'll leave. I mean, you may actually decide sometime after the end of September that you're ready to go. You will have to decide whether or not financially it makes sense. But the sextile to Jupiter tells me you're going to want to travel and you're going to feel pretty good about the money that you have invested or saved, I think. I also think that this is a little tricky because this opposes Saturn and Neptune. So there can be this sense of being like, wait, I thought I had another year to retire. You know, I wasn't planning on retiring so soon. Now what am I going to do? You know, am I just going to sit at home? Saturn and Neptune in the 4th. Like, am I going to, should I move? You know, am I relocating? So there's going to be some kind of turning point where you're going to realize that if you are deciding to leave, you know, there's going to be a lot more time on your hands. The opposition also to Saturn and Neptune can kind of indicate that you're like, actually, I can retire, but I'm not ready for that yet. And the conjunction of Pluto may potentially be some big announcement at work where you may actually get a boost either in your income, because Mercury rules your money from other people, or you're being given a new status, or you're given like a raise, or you could be given like a prominent kind of role at work, and you're like, well, I'm going to stay on for this, you know, especially if like the money talks. Retirement, I see more kind of connected to the 12th house. And so something that is going to happen in the 12th house is you are going to have like a Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus. And that's relating to obviously your whole sign 12th house. So to me, it looks like, sure, that all checks out. Eclipse on Pluto, done with work. South node moon, emotionally done with work. A retrograde where you're like, okay, now I'm like leaving, you know, some kind of work routine that I've been in. Sure, you could totally, I mean, astrologically, you could retire. I would be curious to see what the transits look like in the fall of 2026, personally. And so, you know, from a whole sign perspective, you're going to have Mars, which is your chart ruler, and Jupiter go into your whole sign 10th house Leo. My interpretation is that your last year at work may actually be your best year. And I don't know if you care or not. You got a lot of Virgo in your chart, so you probably care. And Scorpios are very ambitious. But you may feel very inclined to want to stay another year, and your last year may be your best year. You know, deciding to potentially retire with Mars and Jupiter in your 10th house means you're going to go out on top. And if I remember correctly, just shortly after this, Mars, I believe, will go retrograde. Yes, it will. I have a good memory. So at the beginning of 2027, Mars will retrograde over your midheaven, which is basically saying it's guaranteed if you have not retired by, you know, the beginning of 2027, you are going to be retiring right at the end of 2026, beginning of 2027. It's up to you. Do you want to go out on top? You know, with the North Node and the South Node square your Sun? I mean, it looks like you're going to have some exciting new things kind of going on with some investments, maybe even some relationships. It may be worth seeing what happens in the spring and the fall of this year, and seeing what happens with like work and also with some of your coworkers and some of your bosses. And if you end up getting some like really kick-ass promotion, or you get like a higher status and more money and more pay, like I said, you'll go out on top. And I'm not really too concerned about your money in your chart. Saturn's not squaring your 8th house ruler. You've got Jupiter opposing that. So I feel like that can indicate that there are some investments and things that are being made, and an increase of your investments or joint resources over this next year. So there's a lot of other things that go into this when I look at the financial side of it, you know, progressions and solar returns. But coming from a Scorpio, somebody who has a lot of Scorpio in my chart, I would look at this, if this were me, and I would be like, hell yeah, I'm going to stay for another year, because it looks like the second year it's going to be really good, and you're going to leave with some kind of honors or something, you know, with Mars and Jupiter on your midheaven. So see what happens in this next year. But if you decide you want to cut and run, you certainly can. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Christina. We got Rosie. What's up, Rosie? Thank you for your super chat. We got a lot of new people here tonight. What's going on, guys? I want to make sure I have the right Rosie. Let me scroll back up here. And I laughed at the question you sent me. Rosie, can you confirm your birth info for me? I feel like you said, you said something about like music. It was something like, what's going to bring like Nirvana and all of that music from the 90s back? You said like Nirvana and early Mariah. What is Saturn in Pisces for 300? I mean, this is the same transits that we had. North Node in Pisces, and I think that was the 90s, right? Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think so. But I know Saturn was there, so kind of similar, soft rock, moody, vibey, acousticy. You know, that's going to be a big theme this year. The Ides of March. Okay, that's you. All right, so you just wanted February vibes. From what I saw, what I'm seeing in your chart with February. Well, let's see, what's Saturn doing? Saturn's going to get ready to go back into your 3rd, putting an emphasis on communication, the mind, learning, short distance trips, vehicles. One thing that interests me a lot for Capricorn rising charts is just the fact that you're going to have several meetings with Venus. You being met with a benefic is really positive. So for Capricorn risings, Aquarius risings, Pisces risings, this Venus transit is actually going to be quite powerful for you. So you might want to think about what has happened recently around the end of January when Venus was conjunct Saturn. Okay, so Venus is about career, reputation stuff, change in direction with relationships, and Venus meeting Saturn means that there could be contracts, negotiations, meeting people online, short distance trips, focusing more on relationships with siblings or even with neighbors, or planning to start learning things, journaling more. So when Venus comes back, and she comes back over your sun, which is about change, and then she comes back into conjunction with Saturn, she's bringing you some kind of a gift. The only thing I would watch with Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde there, I wouldn't like be buying a vehicle or gadgets or anything like that. I wouldn't be buying a car. The retrograde over your sun makes me feel like you're learning a lot maybe about psychology, therapy, healing. Lots of psychological insights can be really good for therapy. It can really be good for art therapy. And my goodness, Saturn and Neptune are going to sit conjunct your Mercury, which is going to cause, on one hand, some challenges revolving around balancing work habits and routine. On the other hand, the Mercury retrograde is kind of bringing this up early, as is the Venus retrograde. So are you going back and forth as to whether or not you move, whether or not you change jobs? Because Saturn, Neptune, it's going to square Neptune on your ascendant. That's colorful. With Mercury square Neptune, you're sensitive, right? Emotionally. Neptune on the ascendant especially, but Mercury being the mind, the hard aspect to Neptune is like, okay, intuition or impulse. And you may be feeling like there's impulses to, communicate differently, change your job, make shifts also revolving around your home and your living situation. And that square is going to be around for about 1.5 years. So that's going to be something that's just going to kind of keep on keeping on. North node on your sun also is interesting. Look at this. Look at the synchronicity. North node on your sun, 8th house ruler. Mars retrograde through your 8th house. And all these retrogrades over your sun. And your sun is at a Pisces degree. So there's going to be this sense of being like, intuitively, what do I have to come to terms with that needs to like fade away? What do I need to actually dissolve or get rid of? Could be ego stuff, could be stuff revolving around men in your life, romantic relationships, partnerships of some kind. And also this is about really learning to trust your gut, because now you're going to see just how intuitive you are with all these planets on your sun. But there is some significant change coming, right? In a relationship desert for a few years, yes, some writing and yes, some healing. Well, you'll see good relationship stuff when Jupiter goes into your 7th. Of course, it's going to get snagged with a Saturn-Neptune square. Right when Jupiter goes into your 7th house, it's going to square Saturn. So it's reinforcing your Mercury, which is change your routine, change your work, change your habits. And Jupiter in the 7th can bring relationship at some point in the transit, but it's not going to be right off the bat because of the opposition to Neptune. It'll present somebody, and it's likely somebody you meet either online on an app or traveling or in your local community. Your moon is going to show me how you meet partners, and your moon is in the 8th. So after you go through a major transformation or regeneration of some kind in your life, some job change, some life change, relationship change, boom, you'll meet somebody. And they should be a combination of Scorpio, Leo, and Pisces in their chart, And then what you will see is when there's a positive aspect between your moon and Saturn, that's when you're more likely going to see that there's going to be a really significant, stable relationship. So down the road, okay, Jupiter will trine Saturn. So yes, you will have that. But you're going to have next year, Jupiter is going to come in for a trine with Saturn right after it leaves your 7th house. So the second half of 2026 looks much stronger for relationships. I feel like the immediate situation at hand is going to be the next couple of months with the retrogrades and the eclipses and things happening in your whole sign 4th house, which is, am I moving? Am I starting over? Am I redefining what family means? How I feel in my home space? something revolving around your family, and that's going to kind of push and promote you to consider making changes in relationships. Progressions, other things can also factor into this, but certainly when Saturn starts trining the moon next year, and in 2027, you know, there's going to be a lot more stability, I would think, in relationships. Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you, Rosie, and giving you some insight. All right, moving along here. Let's see. I've got Miss Martin. Let me pull you up. Why are you not coming up in here? I'm pretty sure I had you before. Okay, I might have to add you in here. I don't see getting fired. I think with the retrograde over your Mercury is whether or not you foresee yourself wanting to stay in the schedule or the location of where you're working more than anything. All right, I got a couple charts that I got to plug in really quick, you guys. So give me like 3 minutes. Should be pretty quick. That way I can take the rest of you. So you guys can get a drink, get a snack. Right. That was 6 a.m. or p.m. Tricia? Remember you said 6, but... Why is Kanye acting like this? You're like the 20th person to ask me that. I mean, come on, Jupiter went direct in Gemini, literally. Kanye is reinstated on social media. He's a Gemini sun. He's got a bunch of placements in Pisces. So he's got a bunch of squares going on between, you know, the Pisces moon and Gemini. So there's like this subconscious unleashing on social media of all these things he's been bottled up thinking about. 6 a.m. Okay, thank you. I honestly think that's what's going on. I haven't really taken a close enough look at his chart. I just know there's a lot of Gemini and Pisces stuff. But I'm sure if I looked at it, I could tell you. Maybe we'll do that at the end. That would be fun. I would do a video on it, but I feel like I don't know. We'll see. There's definitely a couple people that I would like to do videos on here pretty soon. What's going on here? So, Jason, I need all your birth information. You may have already sent it, but you need to put it in the memo box. So can you put it in the, can you put that for me in the chat, please? Birthday, time, location. I need all that stuff. Yeah, Yi is Yi. That's right. I reposted one of his posts, in all honesty, where he was talking about like the woke stuff and promoting being a fat model and that you're popular until you're not fat anymore. I had to. Oh, he's a Cancer rising. Okay. Thanks, Jason. January 19, 1996. And 6:22 a.m. in Vancouver. That makes sense with all the Pisces stuff in his 9th and why he's being like so horrific with some of his views on particular religions. That makes perfect sense. Good luck, Enchanted. Have a happy birthday. Jessica S., when is your birthday? When and where were you born? Jessica Solis, no information for you. Please send it to me. Thank you. I have a ton of Jessica S's. That's why I wasn't sure which one you were. And that was 2/5/1990. That's weird. I'm not even seeing you in here. Strange. February 5th. Happy belated. All right, who else do we have? Okay, well, I think I've got just about everybody. So we're gonna start with Miss Martin. And let me make sure I'm not missing anybody. Yeah, and then after that I've got Jason, Jessica, Nay, Janae, and then Lika. All right. So let's start with Miss Martin. What's going on, girl? Thank you guys for your patience. It takes me a minute to plug all that stuff in. She says, reading Virgo 9/7/79, 6 a.m. in Jamaica. My career next steps. I currently work for the government. Well, my thought is, even if things seem a bit challenging right now, you've got some really great transits going on. Jupiter is in your 10th house of career and it's direct, which basically means it's opening the door if you want to consider working with another agency, taking another job, partnering with other people, keeping an open mind. You also have transit Pluto, which is about updates in terms of scheduling, location, work, obviously technology, and it's trining your midheaven. So this can be a powerful shift, which can obviously radically change your job, but it's actually improving the future of your job. And your natal Mercury rules your career, and you've got Mercury in Virgo. So nothing is squaring that right now. I would be more concerned maybe like when there's an eclipse near your Mercury, or if there's a retrograde near your Mercury, or if there's a planet that's squaring it. But you're not going to see that quite yet, okay? Now, I can give you a few times that I would be like, hey, there could be a job change. I think one of them off the bat is going to be when Mars goes into Virgo. Another one could also be when you see planets going retrograde over your 8th house cusp, which is about money owed. So for example, the 8th house is like, do you get a severance? Do you get a buyout? You know, if your job changes for whatever reason, or if they have massive layoffs, do you get benefits that support you in some way, right? Maybe. That's very possible because Mercury, Venus, Neptune, Saturn, they're all going to sit on your moon. So you're going to be benefited in some way, but you're going to have to be managing those benefits very carefully. It might come with like a cost, or you're going to have to be budgeting in some capacity. So let's go through some of these times that I think are going to be probably the most prominent, especially since you just had a new moon in your 6th house. So that's what really shook things up. And now that sun is coming into a square with Uranus. So it could mean that you're like, well, do I go and work somewhere else? Do I go back to school? Do I do some training? You know, that kind of stuff. Watch for important information coming to light about work right here. So it's going to be February 9th through about the 12th. And honestly, the sun is about endings, drama, and conclusion. And Mercury is your chart ruler. So there can be some insight that certain people are changing departments, being let go, they're leaving. And then you're going to see March and April, Mercury and Venus retrograde. There can be a negotiation, so there can be severances, there can be benefit packages or things coming in, especially right around mid-March. And then you're going to see down the road some decent transits actually when you have planets going into your 10th house of work. So even if that happens, right? When planets start going into Gemini, this is a turning point for your career. You're going to have a new moon with Mercury. So that tells me that by the end of May, if you do change jobs, there's something new coming in, or there's something that's stabilizing close to Jupiter, good for money and benefits, and Mercury too. You might be working more than one job or going back and forth between wearing multiple hats. And then you're going to see Mars come into Virgo. This is where you're going to want to be a little bit more careful. When Mars hits Mercury, a job change can happen at the end of June. And also when you see the South Node hit your Saturn, which is the traditional ruler of your 6th, and then the South Node. So this would be mid-July. That could also be potentially a job change. And then P.S. for all my Virgo risings watching, Uranus is going into Gemini, which means you're about to have a radical change, shake up in your work, your relationship with your coworkers, your office routine. There's no stopping that train, and it trines Pluto. The good news is that, you know, you do have Saturn that's going to go in and out of Pisces. So it tells me even if there is some destabilizing things that come up, you're going to have benefits or a severance or unemployment or savings or something that's going to support you. But it's not something that you want to keep going for too long, because by the time Saturn and Neptune go back into Aries next year, the financial situation can definitely be a little bit more critical in the spring of next year. And then you're going to have Uranus fully in Gemini, and you're going to change something about your work for sure. So, you know, the general theme for South Node and Virgo is like people are changing jobs, changing schedules, changing occupations, getting laid off. We're going to see lots of layoffs. And Virgo is about servants, okay? So servants for the government, civil servants, people in the service industry. So Mercury retrogrades are going to pack a little bit more of a punch. And that Mercury retrograde that we're next going to have is going to be in March in Aries, and it's going to go retrograde into Pisces. So you may be offered, you know, some, like I said, some kind of severance or buyout, or you may be interviewing or applying for other jobs, and you may decide to take something if you feel like you have more job security, Saturn, to proceed forward in the spring. But yeah, that's 1 change, 2 change, 3 changes, 4 changes. You've got it all over your chart. So I would wonder, you know, did they talk about whether or not they're going to be like trimming the fat in the department that you're working in? Because if it's not you changing, it's going to be everybody around you, which is going to impact something revolving around your schedule or also your responsibility as, you know, Jupiter is kind of growing in the 10th house. Be curious to know. Certainly March and April are going to be big turning points, but you don't have any harsh aspects to your Mercury yet. I mean, you may skate by until Mars hits that, like I said, in July and also in August. And then when you start having eclipses close to here, not that one, this one. So February 17th, south node on your Mercury, solar eclipse in your 6th. So then if you make it up until then, there's going to be another change that's going to come again in February of 2026, you know? Anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you. Let me know what happens. Virgo risings are in for a world of change when it comes to work. All right, we got Jason, Jessica, and then Nay in the Bay. Jason, what's your question for me? How can I help you? I have you here January 19th, 1996, 6:22 a.m. in Vancouver. Let me read the chat. Can I pay you for a personal chart reading privately? Yes, I will see you in June. May or June, I don't know. I'm booked out for a couple of months right now, but I always have my schedule live on my website. Go to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Click book a reading, and you can choose if you want a transit reading, natal chart reading, synastry, whatever you want. And you can see my drop-down menu of my schedule and what's available. I do readings on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And I have like a wide variety of different times open, and you can book and reserve your session with me and put all your info in there. Thank you. I'm trying to make it. You're going to be fine. It's actually going to be a good change. There's just a need for a lot of flexibility and dexterity and some of your skills and what you're willing to potentially do. And like, honestly, a Venus retrograde from your 8th into your 7th could be a sweet, sweet, sweet severance package. It could be really good because it's going to be making aspects to the North Node. So it's about receiving support, right? I'd love to help you out. Let me know. I also do report readings, all things astrology. Usually get that out within like 10 days or so. Hey Candice, hopefully I can still be part of the queue today, but guidance for my career would be really helpful as I'm in the interview process for a position at another company that's much larger. Cool. Let's see if I can help you. So Jason's a Capricorn, rising, sun, and moon. Can we just take a moment of appreciation for all of this Saturnian energy? Holy cow. All right, so your 10th house is a little skewed, but that's okay. Your 10th house is connected to Scorpio, so Mars transits. And your natal Mars is in Aquarius, and obviously your natal Pluto is in Sag. So Mars is retrograde right now, Jason, which basically means any forward motion you're wanting or hoping to see in regards to change in direction with your career and also with communications, it's going to feel a little slow. By the end of February, this is going to start to let up because Mars is going to go direct, and it's going to be in your 7th house of partnerships and relationships with other people. Now, right now as we speak, even though Mars is retrograde, so it feels a little bit kind of slow and it's taking time to hear back from other people. And obviously, as somebody with all these planets in Capricorn, you're frustrated because you're like, what is the problem? Let's get things moving. Mars is trining Saturn, and you're in what we call your Saturn's return. And those of you guys born in like 95, 96 who are having your Saturn's return with the North Node, Godspeed. I have Saturn in Capricorn, so I remember going through like, you know, the Saturn return, and then I had the North Node on my Saturn, so it was like a 7-year Saturn return. So I feel you on that. It's gonna take a little bit of time, but it's just really reinforcing your natal Saturn. So in the 2nd house, it's what is my worth? What do I need to get paid? Do I feel confident? Do I know that I'm capable of doing the job? Do I know what I want to be getting as a salary? Can I express that? Can I get what I want, or am I getting shortchanged? And it's in your whole sign 3rd, so it's going to be also about communicating, expressing, being confident, being able to know when to listen, not just when to speak. And Saturn is your chart ruler, so having your Saturn return on top of the North Node Saturn is like a double dose of, if you don't hear from them, are you going to call back? Are you going to send an email? Are you going to follow up? Definitely a lot of negotiations with finances too, because it's at a 20, so it's a Scorpio degree. So it's like what needs to change with the financial situation. Anyway, you get to the end of February, the tide starts to turn. You're going to see Mars direct, and it's going to be trining stuff connecting to Saturn. Retrogrades will be happening in your home zone. So there's also this possibility where there's like this going back and forth revolving around where you're living, or if you're going to be potentially moving, or there's some stuff going on with family or roommates. So expect that. But I do think that the next hurdle is going to be when Mars opposes Pluto, and that's definitely some financial stuff that comes up in May. Now, you will have a full moon in Scorpio, which is definitely going to be very significant when it comes to your career on or around May 12th, 2025. Full moon in the 10th, ruled by Mars, slightly squaring Mars, but we've got some trines that are happening to Saturn. So it does look like likely you're working in a new position or there's some big change happening at work by May. And he says, is there anything I should focus on for the return throughout the whole process? Yeah, trying to survive. Anybody who's had their Saturn return is probably cackling right now. Trying to survive, especially when it's at a 20. I think that for me, you know, Saturn coming into conjunction with Saturn in your second house is like learning how to manage expenses. And the good news is that once Saturn is, you know, either out of the house that your natal Saturn is in, which it's starting to leave in the spring, or it's about 10 degrees away, you know, by the beginning of this next year, you're going to be over with your Saturn return. But the North Node's going to hit that. And that's going to be in July. So right now and also in July, you're going to feel a real emphasis on being like, I need to know my worth. I need to know my value. I need to manage my money and my resources better too, right? Whole sign, you got Pluto in your second of money, radical change with resources. Pluto's hitting Uranus where you're like, okay, there's some crazy stuff going on with, you know, my financial situation. And you do have Mars in your second house whole sign. So it can be about impulsive spending. The funny thing about your chart, Jason, is that the older that you get, the easier your life will become because you have so many planets in Saturn-based signs. So really, this is a chart to me that speaks about learning how to manage oneself, right? Mercury is retrograde, conjunct Neptune in the sun, and that means that sometimes you don't know what you want or where you want to work or what you want to do, or you don't know if you're willing to embrace a change. That can be within yourself, your habits, your career, your work. But ultimately, I feel like you're going to probably end up either owning a business, running a business, or working for yourself. Okay? Because if there's anything I know about people who have Capricorn stelliums or, you know, real significant Saturn signature or even Uranian signature, which you have that too, in the first or 10th house, they're self-sustained. I hope that's the case for getting older. It's been a grind. Yeah, I have most of my planets are in Capricorn. Or I have my North Node in Aquarius, so it gets better. When you get out of here, I mean, you've been through hell and back. Pluto has touched all of your personal planets. Like, how are you still alive in the first house? Like, you've been through some shit. So you will be fine. The key here is to really know how to better communicate and speak up and not just wait or assume that somebody's going to get back to you. Be proactive. Don't be passive. Saturn in Pisces is passive. And with Jupiter on your ascendant, you're very well spoken, you're very intelligent, you're very capable, and I think you're worth it. And you just don't want to be in situations where you're taking jobs where you're accepting the job because you need a job, but you're getting paid less than, you know, what you're worth, in my opinion. Okay. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you're going to get a brief break over the summer. When the North Node's no longer on your Saturn and Saturn is off your Saturn, you get to summer, you're going to have Saturn retrograde closely in the fall. And then by the time Saturn's fully going into Aries next year, you're done. And the fruit of your labor comes after your Saturn return. It's this buildup all the way into this point. I mean, I look at this and I'm like, dude, are you going to move for a job? Like, what's going on? Because that might happen. Or are you going to be, you know, working a job all year and then you feel more independent, self-sufficient, and then you're like, hey, I can get into a bigger space, or something like that is going to happen, right? But when you're in your Saturn return, you have to stay super diligent and super focused. And I think for a lot of you, it's about faith, and it's also going to be about like money manifestation and doing a lot of work when it comes to self-esteem. And you have to be kind of like empowering yourself, right? I use Astro Gold. It's a long story for lots of trauma, etc. I hope for more depth in a reading later on. This thing makes sense with the flow. I've been feeling to get that point. Yeah, you've you have had Pluto touch all of your personal planets, okay? It hit your ascendant, and then it hit every single planet. The only planet it has yet to hit yet is your Mars and your Venus, and you'll live long enough to see that happen. But from somebody who's had Pluto hit all my personal planets and now it's not conjunct anything, finally, It's like once it's over, like you basically paid for all of your karmic dues early in life, and now you're going to be taking some of those experiences and learning how to be more self-sufficient, which I know you can do. It looks like you've always had to look out for yourself. So now there's going to be this emphasis on being like, well, if I've always had to do it myself, I might as well go and build my own thing, right? You'll see as Pluto gets closer to your Mars the next couple of years, you're going to be like, yeah, it's time for me to do my own thing. You'll see. 33 is like the magic kind of turning point year for your career, by the way. So you'll see some kind of buildup happening. Usually it's 29 and 33. Those are the 2 years that you see significant changes. Oh, wow. Yeah. Pluto stories. Yeah. Well, a lot of Pluto stuff. I've heard a lot of people who have had Pluto on their ascendant or on their first house Lord that they've had that stuff. Good luck with the job. We hope you get it. Yeah, things get a lot better when you get out of like all those Capricorn, Aquarius, like stellium placements. All right, so we've got Jessica and then Nate in the Bay. What's up, Jessica? What can I help you with? Let me know. I don't have a question for you. Nay in the Bay, and then Janae, just so you guys don't get confused. You guys just happen to be back to back. All right, well, Jessica's a Scorpio rising, Sun in Aquarius, and Moon in Gemini. She says, general reading, I haven't dated in 5 months, focusing on every aspect, emotionally, financially, spiritually, physical body. I'm more open now, but my intuition. You're in the queue, Janae. You're 2 readings away. My intuition says to wait a little more. Still waiting to see if government is going to let us go or keep us with everything going on. I work for immigration. I'm wondering if I'm going to be let go, but then have a job. Okay, so a couple things. Work-wise, Mercury is connected to your career by Placidus standards. So you're going to see, the next 2 years, there's going to be eclipses here. And then when I think of Scorpio rising whole sign, Mars retrograde in your 10th house changes with work. Mercury, Venus retrograde in Aries changes with career and schedule, and then an eclipse. So it is looking like a change is coming, okay? These are the dates you're going to want to watch. So you're going to want to watch when Mercury and Venus are retrograde, kind of like mid-March. Venus rules work, and Venus is going to retrograde back with Mercury into your 4th house. So if there is an ending coming, it could be March, and it could be that you're spending more time at home. Doesn't mean that that has to happen though, okay? Because I'm looking at your natal Venus, and while this is taking place, Uranus is trining it. Jupiter is in your 8th house. Similar, a lot of Scorpio risings are going to get severance, benefit package, retirement package. They're going to get unemployment. They're going to get spousal support, child support, inheritance. Something is going to happen with this transit, especially as you're coming into your Jupiter return. Anyway, that could be a time that it happens. Another time that you're going to want to watch is also going to be the eclipse, where you will have an eclipse in your 10th house around the 14th. And this is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is retrograding in your whole sign 6th. So I'd say mid to the end of March is likely when you're going to see some kind of a change that's going to go on. But your natal Mercury is not impacted yet. Maybe when you have the eclipses in March and then you have Mars in opposition to Mercury, sure, yeah, that could happen. So later at the end of March. And if you're already working from home, Mercury being the ruler of the 10th house and it's going retrograde, it is possible that you get word in March and April that if you're working from home, you're returning to an office, or you're having to go and show up at a new physical location and be present, because I don't think that you're going to be working from home much. The only way that you would spend more time at home is if you cut the job. Actually working looks like it's going to be kind of promoting you to focus more on being able to be in an office space and being around other people. So I don't know what it exactly is that you do, but I would find it hard to believe that that's what you're going to be doing, is working from home. In the love department, you are going to be seeing that the horoscope for romance is actually pretty good. Venus rules your 7th house of romance, and it's going to retrograde from the 6th house, where maybe there's changes with work or your schedule, or you're creating more flexibility. Maybe you're going and working out more, or you're doing something that's more physically active, and doing so leads you to meeting somebody. And things get a lot better when Venus is in Pisces. So this will be like around the end of March, and Venus will retrograde with the North Node and Saturn. So I would say the end of March, 28th on, all the way till about mid-April, you actually could find something solid, right? Venus retrograde conjunct Saturn, all ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter's on your moon. So it does look like it's very likely that a relationship or a partnership can come in. There can be the sense of like reevaluating the past, and maybe people from the past return, or you're reconnecting with people that feel karmic or like soulmates. Your natal Venus obviously is in Capricorn, and Uranus is just coming out of a trine with it, and you're also going to see Jupiter oppose your Venus this year. So it looks to me like you're in an annual perfection year 35. So you're in a Venus year, which is a whole sign 12th house. So if you think about your 12th house, it's about kind of clearing and removing things from the past, the subconscious. And Venus is in your whole sign 3rd house. So unexpected job changes can happen, but also unexpected chance meetings, especially locally or on an app. And with Venus conjunct Saturn, it could mean that this is a year where you're saying, you know what, I want to get my money right, I want to get my job right, I want to get my mental health right, I want to get my finances right, before I'm really focusing on a relationship. Relationship stuff will become more prominent down the road, so it's not just the spring. You're also going to see this when Uranus goes into your 7th house. I guarantee this is when you see some major shakeups in love. More than one person usually appears with a 27. And I would be paying attention right around like the 3rd and 4th week of May, as Uranus is now fully going to be in your 7th house. You'll see a Mars-Uranus square in June, but you're going to see Venus come into your 7th house, and this will be really putting an emphasis in July on relationships as well. I think that for Scorpio risings, if they're open to dating again and meeting people in March and April, there can definitely be a really significant window where somebody can come in. The key is, how do you juggle meeting this new person or dating with changes that are going to be happening within your work and your daily routine, because that's pretty expected. It's going to be pretty significant for you over like the next year, trying to figure out how to manage both of those things and look for new opportunities. So if you stay in the current job, there's going to be new people you're working with, new schedule, could be new company takeovers, things like that, because Aries is going to be that. And also, as a Scorpio rising, you know, Aries being connected to your 6th house, there's going to, especially if you work in immigration, I think that's what you said, watch for influence with the military, because Aries is the military. So it can mean that you're having to work with military branches, that there's military operations going on where you're having to work with those people. Maybe it's possible that, you know, you're, for whatever reason, even though you work from home, you have to be in the field, or you're being called to new spaces, or you're having to connect with new teams. Even if it's just like tech or other people who are working with you, you're going to see that there's going to be a flux of new people who are coming in. And also, I think stricter rules and regulations revolving around your job, so be mindful of that. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Jessica. All right, so I've got Nay in the Bay, so, or Nin, right? Am I saying that right? There you go, military contractors. There's going to be a lot more work with some of those people. Am I saying this right? Or the right one? No, this is the wrong one. I need Nay in the Bay, not Nin. Nin, you're next. See, I got you guys confused. I was the one saying don't get confused, and I got you guys confused. Okay, so Nay in the Bay. March 27, 2001, 1:55 p.m. in Santa Clara. I just wanted insight if there's anything interesting for my love and work life coming up, or anything I should know coming up. Thank you. Well, let's see. What's going on with your chart? So, you know, this is kind of cool. You've got some interesting stuff going on here, my dear, with relationships. specifically like the 8th. Let's say the 8th through like the 12th, okay? Your chart's ruled by the sun because you're Leo rising, and the sun's coming up on Uranus conjunct Mercury. So it can be about getting astrology reading, right? Talking to somebody. Uranus can be about astrology, 7th house is astrologer, and getting insight or information, but also like important conversations with people about money, about relationships, about values, going back and forth with friends, having shocking, surprising, exciting convos. But the sun and Mercury are also going to be in hard aspect to your natal Saturn and also Uranus. So it seems like there is some shakeups going on in relationships with others and how that relates to your career or your overall status. So you can see some static like the next week. All right. And a lot of it's like static and craziness going on with other people. It's not so much with you, it's coming from other people. Something else that's interesting is there's a lot of energy right around your birthday. So you're going to have like Venus turning retrograde over your natal Venus, which is retrograde. I remember this retrograde in 2001, ironically. This is significant because it's a part of the same Venus cycle as when you were born. So Venus in your chart rules your career. It could be about love. It could be about money. It's in the 9th house, so it can be saying, well, I'm connecting with somebody who's foreign or somebody who's different or somebody who's unusual or culturally different. It could mean you're reevaluating whether or not you want to go back to school, if you want to return to a place that you have visited or traveled before, if you want to reconnect with a counselor or with like a mentor or a teacher. And that's going to be really prominent for you pretty much all of March into April. Now that's going to be followed up with a Mercury transit. So are you going back and forth whether or not you're traveling for your birthday, whether or not you're spending money on a trip, whether or not you want to go back to school? Is there anything like that going on? Is there a long distance relationship thing playing out? Because Venus in the 9th can be about, love abroad. If that's not happening, keep your eyes out because March and April, you can see some of these themes kind of playing out for you. Now, the Venus retrograde will go right over your sun, which rules your body, okay? We're not dyeing our hair red. We're not cutting our hair short. We are not getting married, hopefully. 9th house can be ceremonies. We want to think about stuff that's like, okay, let's give it a feel. Let's see if this is what I want to do before I really seriously commit or invest to something. My school's been super stagnant and tough. So I feel like the retrograde can be a time when you're really reevaluating, like, is this the best education center for me? Do I want to stay here or do I want to see what else is out there? It's just something to kind of think about. And then after that, Mercury retrograde over your Venus is like, do I still like it here? Could my money be better spent somewhere else? And then right around your birthday, you're going to have a solar eclipse. So it'll be just after your birthday, but the solar eclipse is going to be like right around the 28th, so the next day. And I would say this is going to be a part of your solar return. So, having a solar eclipse on your birthday is like completely hitting restart. There's going to be some unexpected experience, event, travel, change with your education or even with your career that's kind of sending you in a new direction. And it's gonna be a big year basically. So I would sit down and make a list of things that you're hoping to achieve this year, what your goals are, where you want to go, what you want to experience. The several weeks leading up to your birthday, buckle in because you're gonna find that, the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to a solar eclipse birthday, there's a lot of stuff that shakes out. And this for you is in Pisces. So financially, emotionally, psychologically, in terms of like intimacy, vulnerability, endings, beginnings. And the retrogrades in the 8th house is like looking at finances, mortgages, loans, banking, savings, all that stuff. So you're going to be kind of trying to reassess your financial situation. And it looks to me like this year you're 24. So you're in a annual perfection year 1, which is that restart energy. So you're going to want to pay attention to the solar eclipse. Not only that's going to happen in March, but the solar eclipse that's going to be happening for you also in the fall. So that'll be in September. And when planets go through Leo. So July going into August, the solar eclipses, when Mars comes back into your first house. I'm predicting there's maybe going to be a new direction that you're going with your career. Or with your education or with traveling. There will be lots of opportunities for you to travel by yourself, go places you haven't been before. And you might find that female mentors show up to help you, to help guide you when it comes to your career and figuring out how to kind of complete or finish your education and like get into the occupation that you want. So you might find that people are kind of like giving you advice, or they're guiding you along that process. Very significant things though. My goodness. I'm excited to see what happens for you. I think the ninth house it's a lucky house. It's like a Jupiter house. So it means that this is when everything starts to kind of open up and you see what life is all about. I don't think it's all work and stuff connecting to education. It's ruled by Mars, and Mars is in the 5th house of romance at a 19. So something about either travel or the change in direction with your education is also going to open the door for relationship opportunities as well. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Nay. Happy almost birthday. All right, now we have Janae, and then we'll have Lika. All right, so let's see. Or Nin. You're welcome. I just got engaged with the North Node Venus Neptune conjunction, 29 degrees, my 7th house Sabian symbol, a prism like a diamond. Oh, that's cool. So you're Virgo rising, right? And you have Mercury and Venus going retrograde back and forth over your descendant. So are you going back and forth about what you guys want to spend on planning the wedding? Some change going on there. All right, so for Nin, I've got you here June 29th, 87 at 10:17 p.m. in Baltimore. And Nin says, what do I expect this year? Well, I'll give you like the crash course. Probably the most significant thing I can see about your chart. So you're traditionally ruled by Saturn, but your modern day ruler is Uranus. And you're going to see, as an Aquarius rising, Uranus is going to cross your IC this spring going into the summer, which means it's going to shake something up about your home or your living situation and maybe get you in or out of something. And you could be going back and forth between two places, or there can be some family excitement going on revolving around siblings or communication with neighbors, or you could feel like there's like a lot of disturbances in your home and electrical issues. And then it's going to go into Gemini. And this is so fun for Aquarius risings. There's a lot of you guys being like, you know, now I just want to try new hobbies. I want to get out there. I want to do some writing gigs. I want to be learning stuff for new hobbies, podcasting, blogging, unexpected love affairs and romantic partnerships, partying, short distance traveling, having kids. I look at this and I'm like, oh, I kind of see the potential for an unexpected pregnancy for a number of reasons, actually. So Pluto on your ascendant can definitely change your body. Uranus in the 5th, unexpected love or pregnancy. Jupiter on your sun is that as well. And then Jupiter is going to hit your 5th house lord. So if that's something you're trying to do, great. If you're not trying to do that, too much Uranus partying in the 5th house can definitely lead to some one-night stands and unexpected kiddos, so be mindful of that. I like Jupiter going over your sun. I think it's good for your health. I think it's good for your habits and improving your work and your routine. I think that this is also going to bring you the opportunity to kind of enjoy your day-to-day work a little bit better. If you are wanting to carve out more time for health, wellness, or fitness, you could do that. I do think that something else you have to look forward to is, you know, Saturn is going to go over your North Node in the 2nd house. Now, on one hand, this is putting more of an emphasis on working hard for the money. On the other hand, it's about developing stronger self-esteem and like a can-do, self-sufficient attitude. Very entrepreneurial, whole sign 3rd house too. So that's also writing, blogging, sharing, some kind of writing. That comes through your chart a couple of times. I just started updating my blog. Oh, okay, cool. Last year was hell. I lost my mom 6 days after my birthday. I'm sorry to hear that. Lost my uncle 2 months later, and the day of September as I diagnosed with a chronic illness. Holy cow. To the day on November 5th, hoping this year will be better. Well, I mean, you do have your Sun, Mercury, and Mars in your whole sign 6. That is a little bit more sensitive when it comes to health-related matters. Let's see, so you're in an annual perfection year 37, so you're in a Jupiter Pisces year until June. So this is much more about money, finances, resources this year. But you will find that when Jupiter changes signs, there's going to be some significant changes to how you're eating and maybe consuming, like food. There's going to be some dietary changes. And then you'll go into Aries third house year, where I think the blog stuff can really actually thrive, especially right around kind of the late spring, early fall on. My sister is pregnant, but I'm looking to get two. Okay. So, you know, Uranus can be about maybe then unexpectedly, you know, with science and other things, you know, breaking with tradition and kind of moving away from children or having children. If that's what you want to do, that's totally fine. Health stuff, especially connected to like the womb, is more like Mars. And so Mars is going to hit the moon here in a couple of months' time. And you're also going to see that Uranus going into the 5th house is like kind of feeling like, okay, now I have more freedom, you know, revolving around dating, if that's something that you want to do. With Uranus in your 4th house, there's still some shakeups on the home front going on. And I would say if you're in that 2nd house here and your 2nd house ruler is Jupiter, there is an incentive if you're wanting to blog. Maybe you're doing it because you like to do it, but maybe you're trying to find a way to monetize that, or that there's people who are going to be subscribing to your blog, or maybe a Substack or something, so you're getting paid for the work that you're doing. Really sensitive about that right now with Chiron conjunct Jupiter. There's a lot of what is my worth? Is it good enough? Will people pay for this? You know, maybe use the Mercury and the Venus retrograde the next 2 months to kind of sort and sift through kind of revamping your blog and trying to figure out how you can create content that you could monetize. New things that you're writing about, new series that you're potentially doing. Something that you're just kind of rapid fire putting out, things that could be more frequently, is Aries. Something that we're all going to notice about these planets going into Aries over like the next couple of months is like, you know, this like super Piscean, you know, kind of refined, making sure everything looks good and pretty. Like, that's not where the future is going. You're going to see people going back to vlogging. You're going to see like raw, uncut video, people with their hair tied up, no makeup on, like in the moment, like real. So also we're going to see people who are just going to be so focused on getting the stories out and blogging and putting stuff together that we're not going to see these really long articles. We're going to see short, rapid fire stuff that people are doing. So it doesn't have to be as refined. It doesn't have to be as eloquent. It can be something that's just really direct and kind of like in the moment. So maybe you say, hey, I'm going to be, you know, doing a blog every day, right? And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just about that consistency and showing up. And I think it's going to be about kind of building your track record probably with some of your viewers. I hope that's helpful for you and gives you like the rundown. Those eclipses are going to be in your financial houses too, so be mindful of that. The solar eclipse in Aries, the end of March, is going to be about planting new seeds for money and writing. You're going to have, you know, Virgo eclipses in the 8th house, so watch for changes going on with like insurance, health insurance, car insurance, that kind of stuff. And joint finances. There can be also some kind of cutting or breaking off from debt or entanglement to debt, or joint resources of some kind as well. Good luck. I hope you have a good year. All right, we got Lika. She is the MVP this evening. She waited the longest. So we're going to be taking a look at Lika and Sue. So let's look at this. Let's edit this chart. All right, let's plug this in. So that was December 23rd, 78. And that was at 5:50 a.m. Is it Pascagoula? Am I saying that right? Pascagoula for Sue. All right, so Lika, we have you here May 28th, 83, 1:55 a.m. Pisces rising, Sun in Gemini, Moon in Sag. And then we've got Sue here, that is December 23rd, 78, Sag rising, Sun in Capricorn, and Moon is in Libra. All right, so first thing I'm looking at is angles and conjunctions. So we've got a lot of Sag stuff in common. We have got a Saturn vertex conjunction, so that's significant. Is this more relationship oriented, or is this somebody that you work with or somebody you met through work? It's in Virgo. And their Saturn squares your stuff. big time. And their north and their south node also kind of squares your nodes. Interesting synastry. There's a lot of like evolving and pushing each other to change. Moon, Neptune, fairly sensitive, compassionate connection. Mercury, Uranus, Jupiter, also 10th house related, career, status, relationships. Could be great for travel and learning and philosophy. You've got Venus in Cancer. Their Venus trines your Venus. And it looks like they have Mars in Capricorn. You got a Mars-Venus opposition, which is also good. We're looking at their moon in Libra on the cusp of your 8th house, technically whole sign 8th. So that's really vulnerable, deep, transformative, sexy, but it can also be kind of intense in terms of emotional connections. And their sun is very close to your Neptune. So I wonder how you feel about that. Like, do you feel like it's hard to get clarity from them? I like this Jupiter point of fortune conjunction too. That's nice. All right, let's flip this around. Let's look at Sue. Sag rising. So you got your moon on the ascendant, which is nice for emotional connection. Your guys' sun and moons, you know, they're in different signs and elements, but they're about 7-8 degrees away. So they're conjunct. They're very close. You also have a south node sun conjunction. So that can mean friends, lovers, playmates, creative collaborators from past lives. And your north node is in the 7th. And your sun and your Mars are in their whole sign 7th. So having a Gemini descendant with your north node, sun and Mars being there is kind of like they're literally bringing you in because you're the embodiment of what they're supposed to be bringing in. So you really play off this axis of them having planets, you know, in Sagittarius, and then you bring the polarity of all of this Gemini. So it's very dynamic. Obviously squaring each other's nodes, squaring the north and south node of planets both ways is going to be about evolutionary growth. So there's a lot of like polarity here, but opposites can attract. And I have found that, you know, signs being with opposite signs is sometimes actually like a really good thing. Especially when you have planets on the ascendant or on the descendant. I happen to really like North Node in the 7th. I know some astrologers are not crazy about that aspect because the North Node represents not knowing what you're going to get or it being kind of like a curveball. But I think in your case, your North Node is in their 7th. So this can mean that you're teaching them to be more flexible, more open-minded, more communicative, more mobile, you know, when it comes to relationships. And if you look at his moon or their moon in Libra, you know, your sun and Mars trine that. So there is definitely some connection between the sun and the moon. And then on the other side of this, we look at, let's see, yeah, you guys have a sun and moon connection. So you have it both ways, right? Venus trine Venus, Venus trine Uranus. Does your Mars see their Mars? So your Marses don't see each other. That's kind of funky. Mars quincunx Mars. You guys might have a different approach or strategy when it comes to like, not romance, but like sex, passion, physical activity. If your Marses don't see each other, it can kind of be a bit weird or awkward. It may be easier to navigate because you guys have a moon trine Mars. But Mars in Capricorn and Sun and Mars in Capricorn in the first is definitely very like assertive. Even though there's a lot of Sag in their chart, you have a lot of Gemini, so there can be this feeling of like them trying to figure you out and you're just a little bit more flexible or kind of like quick moving than what they're used to. And when somebody has planets in the 6th house, they can feel like it's a challenge sometimes in like navigating being in a relationship with them. So your Sun Mars in Gemini, and it's in conjuncting or quincunxing Sun Mars in Capricorn. When somebody's got their Sun and Mars, and you both do in the same sign, they're very tied to the identity of, well, this is how I get things done. This is how I go after things. This is how I get what I want. Obviously in Gemini, you know, you're flexible with where you live, with how you communicate, with, you know, maybe even your home or your family dynamic. You might like to keep things kind of loose and kind of mobile, or you like options. And, you know, he may not, or they may not understand that. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. And with the Sun and Mars being in the 11th house, quincunx the Sun, I feel like there can be sometimes some challenges in communicating and expressing, you know, things revolving around friends, your guys' goals, if you guys are on the same page about what you're hoping to achieve out of like a relationship together. Still, still, both ways we see 7th house north node. And so what that's doing is it's trying to get both of you guys to get out of your ascendant sign and into your 7th house sign and be able to reflect on, hey, let's integrate that polar energy because opposites can attract and they can balance us out. So I think the key here is like looking at your guys' differences and learning how to be more receptive to your differences and seeing how they can be complementary rather than things that can kind of keep you apart, I guess I would say. Saturn in the 7th house, not the easiest, but if somebody has their Saturn in your 7th house, they can commit to you. They can be the glue that holds you guys together. I just don't know if I'm a huge fan of a partner who has like Saturn square my moon, because there's going to be some emotional challenges and hangups in relating or home and family dynamics. Saturn square my sun or Saturn square my Mars. I'm going to feel like if I'm trying to make moves and be flexible, especially Saturn and Virgo, they're going to go, well, why are you doing that? And like, don't you think you could do it better? And, you know, they can be a little critical. They can be like a little nitpicky. And then when we flip this around and we look at it from their perspective, you know, and your Saturn stuff, it's not making the same aspects. If anything, you know, your Saturn is trining their 7th house and it's sextiling their ascendant. Maybe you'll have something to say about work and career related matters, but it's not as challenging as the Saturn aspect that you have in your 7th house square some stuff. I'm curious who this is, and I can tell you that sun moon or sun ascendant or moon ascendant synastry is like very good because you feel good around each other and you can kind of be yourself and you don't feel like you have to like fake anything. You know, you can just kind of be yourself with your emotions and it just kind of flows. I like that synastry. But I'd be curious what happens as a Sag rising when Jupiter goes into their 7th house this year. And we start seeing major kind of action that's finally coming out of a square with Saturn. You know, a lot of Sagittarius are going to have a breakout kind of year where it's going to be really positive for relationships and dating or marriage, relationship karma, I guess I should say. And I wonder if that's going to be you. You know, you're kind of like the unusual, flexible, wacky, you know, chatty kind of partners that they're supposed to be bringing in. And I think it can balance this chart out quite a bit. Is that the first thing we should look at when viewing our charts, angular houses? I do. First thing I look at is the chart ruler, how it's aspected, you know, how it's placed, how is it performing in that sign. And then I go and I look at the sun and the moon, and I also look at the angles. So what's going on with the angles of the chart. Angular houses, 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th are always going to be pretty active houses. So if I notice a buildup of planets there, it's going to be pretty prominent. When I'm looking at transits, yes, I do look at the angles and see what's going on in the angles of the chart or what's happening to the natal chart ruler or what's happening with the transit chart ruler. So as an example, looking at Lika's chart, I would go, okay, she is, you know, a Pisces rising. So what's going on with her Jupiter? Oh, okay, she's got Jupiter on an angle, right? Conjunct Uranus, and Uranus is intercepted, so there's constantly unexpected changeable circumstances or situations revolving around career, status, you know, what she's doing out in the world. And then I go, all right, well, how else is Jupiter aspected? Oh, it opposes her sun and Mars. Work changes, health changes, Mars, money, you know, back and forth between education or home and work, or feeling like there's some kind of stress because oppositions are stressful revolving around these two topics. And they influence each other. Growth and development with career, which is karmic, south node, and also home dynamics, changeable, moving, family, maybe working from home in the 4th. And then I would take her chart and go, all right, well, where is transit Jupiter right now and how is it aspecting her chart? Oh, chart ruler's in the 4th. She's focusing more on home and family dynamics. And how is it aspecting Jupiter? It's opposing it. It's squaring her ascendant. So yeah, you always got to look at the chart ruler. You always got to look at what's going on with the transits to the chart ruler and also where that planet is in the sky. That's going to tell you pretty much like 70% of everything that you need to know. Not that other things don't matter, they do, but if you want like the quick hack to looking at that, yeah, you can see a lot. All right, I'm going to see if I have Kanye's chart. I don't know if I have it, to be honest with you. I might. Oh, I do. All right. I just want to look at, I haven't looked at his chart yet. So if there's people here who are curious about what's going on with Kanye. Looks like Kanye is a Cancer rising, moon in Pisces, and sun in Gemini. So he's ruled by the moon. And for the last, I don't know, 24-ish hours, 48 hours, the moon has been in Gemini. So he is coming into his Jupiter return. So this is a lot about him sharing with the collective, a lot of his thoughts and ideas, which have been very private, in a more public way. And it's obviously a lot about culture, ninth house, religion, belief systems, things like that. And obviously this is clashing with Saturn and his moon. That's his chart ruler. So I have observed a lot of Cancer risings right now with Mars retrograde on their ascendant, that there is a lot of release of anger, frustration, hostility, hurt, pain. And then Jupiter in the 12th house is, where there's grievances that they've had with people that they've worked with, or experiences that they've had through work collaborations that they've been holding in, that they feel like they have been done wrong, or they feel like there's been hidden enemies, and now they're kind of like having a meltdown. I've seen actually, I 3 outside of Kanye today specifically, I have seen. So, and they're all doing the same thing. Oh, I'm reliving my trauma. I'm going through some of the things I've experienced. I'm finally lashing out. I'm finally, dealing with it. And that's a theme, right? Anyway, Saturn's leaving his moon. North Node's coming in conjunction with his moon. So you guys are probably going to be hearing more about him over the next, couple of months with that North Node connection. And there are some gnarly things going on with his Mars and his Venus in Taurus. Look, Pluto in his 7th house, which is definitely bringing a lot of drama, and he's acting out, is squaring his Mars and his Venus. And so he's basically confronting and combating people in a really Uranian way, sporadic, sudden, unexpected. And it's putting everything out in the open, front and center, where he's calling out people. Mars can be about, stuff in connecting to romantic partners. It could be children. It could be other performers, right? And then Venus is going to be connected to his friends, which he said a lot of stuff about people who were his friends, and also his past relationships, or things revolving around his private life and relationships as well. So between the Mars-Pluto stuff and the Jupiter stuff going into his 12th house, it'll be interesting to see when Jupiter crosses his sun. He's going to make money. Right? It's going to happen because the sun is his 2nd house ruler. So the more that people try to cancel him or shut things down, he will make money. And then you're going to see that Jupiter is going to cross his ascendant in this next year, which is also going to be a little bit more of like a return. And I think you're going to hear a lot more about Kanye actually in the fall with Jupiter on his ascendant, where he's kind of making headlines, or there's some legal stuff going on, or he's traveling a lot more. He's in a bunch of like foreign related things. He might be getting really preachy, religious or spiritual. And then the North Node hits his moon. So in theory, Jupiter on the ascendant, North Node on the chart ruler, the trines are good. We might see a bit of like a religious revival kind of going on with him. I think that that's very possible. And then you also look at Uranus conjunct his Mercury. His Mercury is an algol, guys, like the late degrees of Taurus, like where somebody's head spins around and they lose their mind. And it could be through alcohol, it could be through demonic possession, it could be through mental health issues. So Uranus hitting that is like him having a meltdown. And I think a lot of it is like undealt with and unprocessed trauma. And so now you're just seeing him spewing all of this stuff out. And like, until Uranus is off of his Mercury, he's going to be doing his thing for the next couple of months. And then he may kind of be quiet for a little bit in kind of June going into July. But then I think you're going to see this kind of peak up a little bit more in August when Jupiter is on his ascendant. Anyway, that's my hot take on Kanye. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Join me next week. I'm going to be here for Valentine's Day. If you guys want to do tarot readings with me, you can be my Valentine. Bring some chocolates and something to sip on. We'll hang out and do a bunch of like scandalous love readings. That's really what I want to do. Maybe we'll like wear pajamas or something. I don't know. Make sure you subscribe. I've got a Astro Weather coming out on Sunday. If you guys want to book a personal reading with me, I have reports, personal one-on-one readings, astrology calendars, courses. I teach astrology. So if you guys vibe with the way that I do readings,
check out my Astro 101 or 201. It is on my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. And please subscribe because we're so close to 40,000 subscribers. We're almost there. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will see you all very soon. Take care.